me, Callie Crossley, Sunday night at 6 here on 89.7 GBH and the GBH app.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on the 11 o'clock hour, BPR live from the Boston Public Library. Another day, another direct attack on free speech by Donald Trump, who now wants to take away any FCC license for those who speak critically of him. What's the impact on the media? And are you feeling the trickle-down effect of this in your life? Censoring your own words, please call or text.
I'm Marjorie Egan, and speaking of the media and censorship, it's time for our weekly Press Play segment with NBC 10 media maven Sue O'Connell and the Bay State Banner's Ron Mitchell. The First Amendment fallout in the wake of Charlie Kirk and more. It's all ahead in 11 o'clock hour BPR on GBH and NEPM, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Kristen Wright. A vaccine advisory panel to the CDC is meeting for a second day to discuss making changes to the childhood vaccine schedule. In a revote, the committee now says it will allow a federal program to pay for MMRV immunizations to protect against measles, mumps, rubella, and chickenpox. That is a reversal from what the panel decided yesterday. Separately, the committee has voted to stop recommending the combined MMRV shots for children under 4. NPR's Pink Wong reports.
This has been a highly unusual meeting. There are 12 members. They're new since June when Kennedy fired all the previous members, and they have come with a new approach. They're challenging years of established vaccine science, and they're digging deep into old data to try and find evidence of harms. And throughout the meeting, there's been clashes between the new members and with members of the medical establishment.
The committee voted to table action on whether to delay the birth dose of hepatitis B vaccine. Some members said they need more information. South Korea's foreign minister says his country will try to address visa issues for South Korean workers headed to the U.S. before delivering $350 billion in pledged investments. NPR's Anthony Kuhn has more.
Since immigration authorities raided a Hyundai battery plant in Georgia this month, detaining more than 300 Korean workers, South Korea has requested a new visa category for its skilled workers. Cho Hyun is South Korea's foreign minister. Resolving the visa issue is not a precondition for investments in the U.S., but realistically speaking, it's a very important issue, Cho told reporters. We will make our best effort to resolve the visa issue one way or another before actual investments begin, he said. U.S. officials have expressed regret about the raid, and President Trump has confirmed the need for Korean workers to come to the U.S. to build factories and train American workers. Anthony Kuhn, NPR News, Seoul.
Climate change is affecting people's health across the world, and the costs are staggering. NPR's Alejandra Barunda reports on a new analysis published in the journal Nature Climate Change.
As the planet heats up, people's health is taking a big hit. Extreme heat may have cost tens of thousands of lives this summer in Europe alone. Wildfire smoke hurts people's hearts, lungs, and even brains. Extreme weather leads to premature death. And a warming planet is leading to more mosquito-borne diseases like malaria and dengue fever. Adding up all the costs of climate-related deaths each year comes to a big number. According to the new analysis, at least $10 billion, and likely much more. Heat-related deaths worldwide alone could cost $30 billion a year. But those health impacts and costs are rarely considered in climate negotiations. If they were, the authors suggest the value of taking climate action would be clearer.
This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A months-long closure of a runway at Boston's Logan Airport could cause flight delays through November. Massport officials say the closure of runway 927 began on September 2nd and is set to last for 75 days in total. And in a statement released Thursday night, Last night, 33% of the day's flights out of Logan had been delayed. The runway closure is one of two 75-day closures that have been planned to allow for the installation of a new safety system meant to stop planes that have overshot the runway. The second closure will begin sometime after July 1st of next year. And a quick look at the calendar tells us that today, September 19th, is International Talk Like a Pirate Day. A day created in 1995 by two guys from Albany, Oregon. They are John Bauer, Mark Summers, who proclaim September 19th each year as the day when everyone in the world should talk like a pirate. Even the Muppets give it a yo-ho-ho.
Today is International...
Arg! Shiver me timbers and hoist me by the yardarm. Please!
Like I said, today is...
Hey, Kerman, someone forgot to swab the poop decks, okay?
Today is
Hey, what do you think of my new socks? They're Argyle.
Yes, they are. And today is International Talk Like a Pirate Day.
There you go. How much is corn at the farmer's market? It's $1 an ear. 75 degrees in Boston right now. I'm Henry Santoro. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Lilly Endowment, a private foundation supporting NPR's coverage of religion and spirituality. And Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts.
He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Yeagan. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Thank you. Live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be joined September 23rd, that's next week, at the Boston Public Library by Michelle Wu. Also, Andres Nelsons, who is the conductor, the music director of the Boston Pops. September 30th at the library, we're going to be joined by the Governor Maura Healey. Good morning, Jim.
Hey there. And speaking of politicians, former politicians, well, maybe future politicians, at noon today, we haven't seen him in a while.
No.
Joe Kennedy III is going to join us to talk about the Democratic Party, his groundwork project that basically is a follow-up to what his grandfather, Bobby Kennedy, did in the Mississippi Delta and beyond in 1969. So he'll join us at noon. Yesterday, we talked with all of you about ABC's decision to pull Jimmy Kimmel off the air under pressure from the FCC, from the federal government, as we know, allegedly over Kimmel's comments about Charlie Kirk's murderer. Donald Trump last night outright confirmed what Marjorie talked about a lot on air yesterday. If you dare to disagree with the President of the United States, you will be targeted. Here's Trump on Air Force One last night.
You have a network and you have evening shows and all they do is hit Trump. That's all they do. But when you go back and take a look, all they do is hit Trump. They're licensed. They're not allowed to do that.
Essentially, he said, you missed the end of that. They're licensed. They're not allowed to do that. His point is you hit Trump, talking about himself in the third person, and you have potential to lose your license, lose your voice. So the lines are open again to discuss the speech fallout in the wake of the high-profile murder of conservative figure, right-wing extremist figure, I would argue, Charlie Kirk. Just 5 years ago, at the Republican National Convention, Trump rallied his supporters in fervor against cancel culture. In his second inauguration speech just this year, I'm going to play it for you in a minute, he vowed to bring back free speech to America. Obviously, something changed as right-wingers are calling for people to lose their jobs if they don't appropriately mourn the death of Kirk in a manner that pleases Republican leaders. And it's not just high-profile media personalities. As you know, teachers and others in Massachusetts have been suspended or lost their jobs over social media posts. So with ABC capitulating on Jimmy Kimmel, how far do you worry that an emboldened Donald Trump will go to extinguish speech? And in your own life, are you thinking of making yourself a smaller target? Are you self-censoring or finding ways to make your voice heard? The number is 877-301-8970. Can I just play that thing that I referenced a minute ago?
Yep.
Here, you heard Trump last night. If you hit Trump, that was his expression, you hit Trump, you're probably going to lose your license. Here's what he said January 20th, I think it was, on his inaugural address just a few months ago.
I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America. Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents. Something I know something about.
Well, you do know something about. Is it fair to say the biggest fraud in the history of this country? Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents.
Yeah, because he was mad about Hunter Biden's laptop and correcting things online about the COVID vaccine. I guess that was it. But it was speech he didn't like then, but now he wants to make sure any speech he doesn't like now is going to be gone. And it is kind of scary. What's particularly scary is that the most powerful and richest people in America are not standing up to this guy. You know, ABC, you would think they already paid him $16 million, and obviously he keeps going after them. You would think they would have learned something. It's greed, really. These people are billionaires, and they're worried about mergers. And because they're worried about mergers and FCC approvals, they're willing to roll over to the President of the United States. And it was really interesting to listen last night on Jon Stewart's show, who basically did this thing about how he was really nervous, you know. He wanted to get an administration-approved show that wouldn't upset Trump. They had journalist Maria Ressa on, who we were lucky enough to have on. She won the Nobel Prize, the one that Trump wants. He wants the one for peace. But anyway, she won.
Well, that was what she won it for.
She won the Nobel Prize, and she was threatened with 100 years in jail in the Philippines against the then Duterte, the president that was going around. So anyway, she said we're already in huge trouble, and we're already in huge trouble in the United States of America because we didn't fight back immediately against the 143 executive orders, many of them illegal, that he issued the first day in the White House. And then you heard Garry Kasparov, who people may remember, he was a big Russian press champion, and
he was not a big Russian. He was a world champion. The chess player. Yeah,
he's a genius chess player.
World, yeah.
I don't follow chess as closely as I do, but he was a big deal in the chess world. And he was talking about Vladimir Putin's attack on the press and how it happened very slowly, step by step. That Putin went after big corporations like ABC and NBC or individual journalists, and then everybody else got the message to shut up. But you know, the difference between Russia and us is that if you go against Vladimir Putin, you might wind up getting thrown out a window or shot in a bridge or imprisoned like Navalny was and dead. In the United States, you're going to lose some money. That's the difference. They're facing death, and these billionaires and these people at Disney. How big is Bob Iger's yacht?
I think it's 141 feet or 171 feet.
Didn't
he have to get rid of the first yacht because it wasn't long enough?
Yeah.
I think.
So I guess that's what we're talking about, maybe a slightly smaller yacht. It's not talking about risking your life, but we in the United States are rolling over. And until somebody stands up, this is going to keep going.
One other difference with Russia that you ignored is we also have a First Amendment, which theoretically guarantees us the right to speak freely. By the way, I want to add one more thing to this in response, not in response, to add to complement your point about it's all about the bottom line. The sycophantic tech people who were sitting around them like little Zuckerberg.
It's all about money.
All about money.
Yep.
All about mergers. Well, Larry Moulter used to run The Garden, texted something to me today. This is a wonderful story. Remember the Pentagon Papers?
I do.
Obviously. Katharine Graham, obviously, Post president and publisher, I'm going to read, was faced with a decision to publish them or not. Defying the court order carried significant risk. The Washington Post company had just gone public, and reporting on the Pentagon Papers meant risking a criminal charge that would imperil their $35 million stock offering. That's when $35 million was real money, by the way, and put the paper's financial future in jeopardy. A criminal conviction would also give the FCC an excuse to strip the Post of the licenses to lucrative television stations, WTOP in Washington, etc. What did she do? Published the Pentagon Papers. And by the way,
there's a really good movie about
personal
that too.
I know there is risk. The point is, it wasn't always this way. The number's 877-301-8970.
We were way off on the size of the yacht. Yeah. Apparently, his Iger's yacht, the guy from Disney Aquarius, is 213 feet
That's
long.
long.
So clearly, he's got a lot in the line. He's very concerned about the price of butter and inflation.
He is. No, I mean, it is. I want to repeat what you say. It's all about the bottom line. For the tech people, they're willing to sacrifice their freedom and ours. For the media companies, they're willing to sacrifice their freedom and ours. And this is what we've been talking about all along. When is the fight back going to come? And please don't call today and say there's a No Kings rally on October 18th. That's a month from now. That's a month from now, and Trump's doing what he's doing.
Well, there's Bill McKibben's climate rally
It's
on
great. Bill
Sunday.
is relentless.
And
He's an exception to the rule.
I think people will be there for climate and or other things.
I hope.
If they show up on Sunday. There's one in Boston. We're going to talk a little bit about it later. By the way, late night comedy stood up last night. I'll give them credit. They all did. Fallon was a little mealy mouth, but the other, Seth Meyers, Colbert, whose show was going to be was canceled. He's going to get to run until May, but his show has been canceled. And Jon Stewart. They all.
Let's
stood
play
up
it. We
last
have a little
night.
bit of that, and then we promise we'll get to your calls. You're going to hear Colbert, Stewart, Fallon, and then Myers. Here it is.
If ABC thinks that this is going to satisfy the regime, they are woefully naive. And clearly, they've never read the children's book, If You Give a Mouse a Kimmel.
We have another fun, hilarious, administration-compliant show.
Yeah, a lot of people are worried that we won't keep saying what we want to say or that we'll be censored. But I'm going to cover the president's trip to the UK just like I normally would. Well, guys, President Trump just wrapped up his 3-day trip to the UK, and he
looked incredibly handsome.
Back here at home, his administration is pursuing a crackdown on free speech. And completely unrelated, I just want to say before we get started here that I've always admired and respected Mr. Trump.
Yeah, that was kind of the theme about how they were all sucking up and complimenting Donald Trump. And on The Daily Show, that was with Jon Stewart, they had a group of faux reporters, and one of them was complimenting Mr. Trump's big, much bigger than normal.
We know what you're talking about.
Because we know he's concerned about that.
Aaron, apparently at the library. Aaron, hello there. Welcome to the show. How are you, Aaron?
Good morning. I guess I'm happy to be the first person because everybody else may say exactly what I'm about to say.
Which is?
Which is that I'm terrified about this level of censorship. I think that they're saying it out loud because they're so confident that they've moved as quickly as they have.
Totally agree with you.
And they'll continue to move. They'll continue to move quickly as long as the Republicans in Congress and the Supreme Court allow them to do exactly what they've allowed them to do so far. In terms of self-censorship, I don't intend to censor myself. Of course, I'm just one person. But, people have been afraid, what happens? Are we moving toward authoritarianism? We're there. This is what authoritarians do. And the only way that you get out of authoritarianism, as far as I'm concerned, is mass movements by the citizenry.
Can I tell you, Aaron, there's not a word you said that I disagreed with, and we're waiting for that mass movement to come.
Well,
and by the way, I know it insults a lot of our listeners who are engaged in relentless small actions locally, all of which deserve great praise. But I'm going to talk a little bit later about what's going on in France in reaction to smaller incursions on the rights of the French than we have here, and it's a totally different world.
I would
Aaron, thanks.
I'm not going to depend on the Republicans at this particular juncture. I want the elite billionaires of this country to grow some and stand up against this guy. ABC could have stood up against this guy. They could have not done what they did to Jimmy Kimmel, but they chose to knuckle under. Harvard University was supposedly standing up, but every day I read something else that they're kneeling down to Trump on. I mean, I get why regular people that are working paycheck to paycheck and they can't afford, to lose $20 a week. But these people are billionaires and they can't stand up.
Well, one of the most egregious examples beyond the media, Jamie's just reminding us, we played the sound for you last week, when Zuckerberg and Tim Cook and others were at the White House a couple of days ago. Zuckerberg is asked the question of how much he's going to invest in the United States. He goes, and then he makes up a number, and then he leans over to Trump. This is Mark Zuckerberg, a relatively powerful, relatively wealthy man, and says, I'm paraphrasing, I wasn't expecting that. I hope it was all right. And what do we play? Tim Apple, as we call him, or as Trump used to call him, saying thank you to Donald Trump 8 times in 2 minutes. Sycophantic, pathetic crap. Robert and Brockton, you are next on BPR. Hi.
I'm sorry I don't agree with you on anything you've said.
Great.
Anything about Trump being the most fraud in America ever.
Yeah.
It's Biden. Biden did nothing to make America better. Biden was dementia from the day he stood in front of a camera after living in the cellar and said, I'm running for president. Everything about, you say,
Hey, Robert, it's a good start. Robert, I'm going to talk for a second.
We need some specifics, Robert.
I'm going to read to you.
You talk a lot, though. Okay, go ahead. Talk. It's your show.
Goodbye, Robert. Thanks for the... No, we appreciate the call.
I
877...
wish I had heard the specifics about what Trump has done. I would like to hear those. You can juxtapose what Biden did, biggest bill ever on climate, which is a big deal. As we know, the earth is burning up. The CHIPS bill was a pretty big deal in terms of putting a lot of money in red states. I mean,
Well, with all due respect, Marjorie, it's whataboutism. Let's assume Biden was a horrible president, which neither you nor I think he is. We're talking about what Donald Trump is doing to the country here. When people like Robert from Brockton can't defend a thing that Donald Trump is doing, it's what about Joe Biden? What about Kamala Harris? What about Hillary Clinton?
Yeah.
It's BS. By the way, feel free to send us an email with details, Robert. And by the way, if you're more respectful next time, you won't get cut off. 877-301-8970. Peter and Wenham.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Morning, rather.
Hi.
I have a number of wealthy clients, and one of my clients, he's a money manager, works with big clients investing, and I asked him if he was worried about the move towards authoritarianism and fascism, and he told me that he believes democracy is overrated, and they're just worried about stable markets, business deals moving forward. You know, China is a capitalist dictatorship. So he said democracy was overrated, and it's just they're more worried about business deals going through. And it was reflected in this, with Jimmy Kimmel being, fired because they just want to protect their business deals. Same
By the way,
Colbert.
suspended for whatever it's worth. We don't know if he's
But
fired.
Peter,
Yeah.
you might remind him about what happened to the billionaire oligarchs in Russia when they stepped. When they, you did, and what was his reaction to that? Did he want to go to jail or be sent to the gulag?
I told them that. I said it's all fine as long as your guy is the dictator. But once they nationalize your wealth or your business, I think you'll feel differently about authoritarian and dictatorships. And he said he doesn't see that happening. But.
Oh, okay.
Peter, thank you for the call. I thought you were going to mention when we had Adam from the New Yorker, who was Adam Gopnik, was that who was with us?
Yeah.
Who wrote the review on that book about the lead up to Hitler, about all they weren't billionaires then, but the uber wealthy. Why did they go along with Hitler?
Good for business.
And they thought he was a fool who they could manipulate. And I think there are a lot of business people in this country think Trump is a fool who they can manipulate.
Except he's manipulating them.
I couldn't agree more.
And you'd think it would have dawned on he's going after Jonathan Karl. I mean, ABC made a fool of itself by settling with $16 million, and they continue to keep making a fool of themselves. Jonathan Karl, who asked him a question the other day, and Trump blew up at him and screamed at him and said, "We're going to go after you now because you're using hate speech and all that kind of stuff." So, I guess the lesson you'd think they don't seem to get that capitulating. Makes it worse, and that the people that have stood up, like the law firms, they're winning. The law firms that stood up, if people would get together collectively and stand up and say enough is enough, I think that's what's going to happen. Somebody's texting the real issue is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court does not rule against Trump, and all our activity by corporations, Harvard, etc., is useless as Trump brings everything to the Supreme Court, which then rules in Trump's favor, and that's a real problem too. But so much of what Trump is doing is against the Constitution and against the law. I'm hoping that in some places, what are you laughing at?
I'm laughing because we had this discussion with Carol Rose the other day. If they say it's constitutional, any sane person knows it's not. The problem is those 6 people get to decide. Sane people do not.
But they haven't said it's unconstitutional yet, Jim.
They haven't.
No.
What do you mean? Oh, you're talking about the racial profiling in California.
Well,
the most recent
that was
case where
pretty
you
bad.
think they violate, and it's not, as Carol said, it's not a final decision. I just say 6 votes on a non-final decision is a little troubling for what's coming down the line.
It is troubling, but I still think that if there were collective pushback, it would matter.
What does collective pushback mean?
I think that these universities need to get together. The law firms need to get together. The big tech companies need to get together.
They have gotten together.
They have gotten together and
together.
sucked up is what they've done.
Exactly.
I think they should get together and fight back. Claudia from Worcester. Hi, Claudia.
Hello, Claudia.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
I'm calling because I come from another country, although I am a naturalized U.S. citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm from Venezuela, and what I am seeing, unfortunately, in this country is headed so much where my country of origin went through. And we know where it is right now. One of the things that Chavez did was to stop the light. The history in the book, he censored people. And I am absolutely saddened and terrified to see how in this country, my second country, where I never thought this would be possible, I'm seeing a president implement measures that autocracies around the world implement.
Claudia, your call means a lot.
Yeah.
We're really glad you shared your experience with. I've never been a Trump fan. I never thought we'd see anything
But Claudia
like this.
mentions the other things, changing the history,
he's
getting rid
doing.
of the references to slavery and the bad things that the United States did in museums, trying to regulate the schools so that they only teach a positive view. Where is it? Is it Oklahoma? I could be wrong. It's one of the red states where they're going to teach that the election was stolen.
Yeah, election. It's part of the curriculum.
Yeah, the election was stolen, and even though 60 court decisions said there was no evidence for any of that, you know, Trump.
I'm not sure. In fairness, you may be right. I'm not sure that it was stolen, but that there were serious irregularities that deserve to be taught to the school children in Oklahoma.
Yeah, well,
even though, as you say, every single court ruled against Trump, including Trump's own judges. You know, I know this is not a terribly deep thought, but you know what I think about every day when the horrors of Trump are visited on people is how. Do we step back and realize how we're going to look back on this in a year or 2 or 3 years and say to ourselves, why didn't we do more to deal with this?
That we are a gutless country. I mean, you look at the Ukrainians, you look at the people in Gaza. We're facing losing money, and it's billionaires that are facing losing money. I would say that we're greedy and gutless.
Well, how about real people, though, who are not losing money? Well, they are, but they're also losing freedom.
Real people are much more likely to stand up, I think.
I'm waiting.
Anyway, do you know they're having a Bell Ricker's having a memorial to, we should check that out.
For what?
To Charlie Kirk.
There was a rally on the Common, about 1,000 people, in a memorial for Charlie Kirk yesterday.
Okay, you are listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. More of your calls and texts coming up on what has happened with late night, what has happened with authoritarianism in the country, and Donald Trump's claim that anyone who is not positive about him risks getting shut down. What's the number, Jim? 877-301-8970.
No, it's a very new number, that's why.
Russia is hosting an international song contest called Intervision, an alternative to the better-known Eurovision. The U.S. has entered the contest.
It's incredibly useful for Russia to have the U.S. or a U.S. participant in this song contest. It's showing, hey, look, the U.S. is willing to make a cultural connection.
That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education, offering 2 to 3 day courses and executive certificates for professionals seeking cutting-edge business insights on innovation, cybersecurity, AI, and more. Info at executive.mit.edu. And the Boston Speakers Series, continuing its season at Symphony Hall with 7 evenings featuring Dr. Anthony Fauci, Ken Burns, Outliers author Malcolm Gladwell, and freed Russian political prisoner Vladimir Kara-Murza. bostonspeakers.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Margery Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. If you're just tuning in, we're talking You're taking your calls and texts about the continued assault on the First Amendment in the wake of Charlie Kirk's murder last week. To repeat, what Donald Trump said on the airline yesterday is exactly what Marjorie Egan said he was all about, was you criticized Donald Trump, we shut you down. That is his version, I guess, of fairness and speech in America. Lori in Southeastern Mass, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, Marjorie.
I'm here too. It's okay. Hi, Lori. Hi.
Oh, sorry about that, Jim.
That's okay. Oh, thanks. Hi.
I'm a public school administrator.
Oh.
And I've been canceled by liberals for allowing unvaccinated parents and grandparents into a school event. I've been canceled by conservatives for flying a pride flag during an event.
Wow.
What's going on now is next level. It is so frightening for all of us in schools when the First Amendment, when free speech is being impacted in a way that is unprecedented.
Yeah, I have to say, Lori, if I may, flying a pride flag obviously is a speech thing. If I heard you right, I'm not sure I agree that allowing unvaccinated parents in the meeting is a speech thing. And I have to say, if I was the administrator, I would crack down on it too. But we hear you. It's a bad time. Lori, thank you very much for the call.
We have a clarification from our staff here.
What's that?
That what we're reporting here at GBH, the academic standards in Oklahoma call, as you said, for the teaching of discrepancies in the 2020 election results, continuing the spread of a false narrative because there weren't widespread.
Have you seen the guy who's the head of education in Oklahoma, who's like a 40-year-old white guy who when you can tell when an elected official or would-be elected official is speaking to one person in the United States, meaning Donald Trump. Every time you see this guy talk, there's no audience he cares about except that Donald Trump is listening, and that maybe he too can talk about A1 if he becomes the Secretary of Education, if Linda McMahon leaves. It is so sad and scary.
It's right across the board, right? It's his cabinet. It's the Republicans, people in Congress that are Republicans. It's right across the board.
Other than, you probably know this better than I, other than Ted Cruz, who to his credit, I believe after the Kirk killing, responded to either, I think it was Pam Bondi, who talked about cracking down on people for hate speech, said, hate speech, I'm paraphrasing what Cruz said, hate speech may be objectionable, obviously, but it's not unconstitutional. It can't be stopped. Is any other high-profile Republican said what they always used to say, which is, we are free speech absolutists. We may not like the speech, but
I think there was more than one, but I can't name names. Sorry, I should be able to, but I can't.
Well, I can't either. Emily in New Hampshire, hi, welcome to the show. Thank you for calling. Welcome.
Hi, it's my first phone call, and I just want to say I am almost 70 years old. Sorry about the dog barking.
It's okay.
I have had on my garage since January a Unite Against Fascism sign with a swastika and the international symbol for no on it, very prominently displayed. And I had a giant resist sign, and now I've replaced it with a picture of the Statue of Liberty and Resistance is Patriotic. I have not had a single beer bottle thrown at my house, which surprises me.
I was going to ask you that.
I'm planning to put up a new sign that says Courage and Home of the Brave. I specifically have an American flag posted along with the signs because I'm taking that flag back. And when I wore my No Kings gear to the 4th of July, I had so many people come up to me and say, I wish I had your courage. And it's not that I'm so brave. I'm just waiting for everybody else to be brave with me. And, before the election, there were signs everywhere. And now nobody has any signage up at all. And I feel like, people see the white-haired old lady out there with her signs. Maybe they'll be willing to step up as well.
I'm really glad you called for the first time, not only because your message was quite impressive, but we asked people to talk about self-censorship, and obviously you're suggesting your neighbors are doing just that. They're willing to speak out before there was a vote, and once the vote was taken and Trump was elected, they've decided to become, quote, a smaller target. Emily, really appreciate you sharing your view with us, and thanks for what you're doing.
Well, it's like the educator that just called. You hear all these stories every day about, particularly it was a bad one down in Texas where the 4-star general that was the president of the university down there quit his job after there was an upset because one of the teachers talked about there being more than, trans stuff, and some kids stood up in class and said the president said there are only 2 genders. And that teacher wound up getting fired, and some other people wound up getting fired, and the 4-star general president of the college resigned. So I can see why educators would be very, very nervous. Lynette from Granby, Connecticut. Hi.
Hello, Lynette.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Turn my volume down.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking my call.
Of course.
I just want to say that if they feel like they need to censor the left, they ought to censor the right. Freedom of speech is not a one-way street. If you're going to shut down Jimmy Kimmel and the late-night people, they should shut down Trump and his administration for what they have to say.
How about shutting down neither? How about shutting down neither, Lynette, instead? How about that?
Hello?
Hello. How about shutting down neither?
Hello?
I think we're not just hearing each other. Lynette, thank you. Obviously, we have a technical issue. Our apologies. Thank you very much for your call.
We have some people texting that they're canceling Disney Plus and Hulu.
Yeah. Disney owns ABC.
Yeah, Disney owns ABC. That's correct. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, we don't have time.
Oh, we don't?
Okay, nothing.
We're out of time.
We're going to continue the discussion, though, with guests.
They're so revved up, Jim. I didn't notice how
Don't
fast.
look. What's the phone number?
877-301-8970.
Very nicely done. Very nicely done.
I surprised you.
You
okay.
did. And yourself, I think.
I know.
It's shocking.
It's always a 50-50
Who am
gamble.
I?
Am I going to remember my name? Am I going to remember the phone number? Anyway, coming up after this quick break, Press Play segment with Sue O'Connell and Ron Mitchell of the Bay State Band. We're going to talk to them about how far Trump may go, whether or not any of these billionaires will fight back. We'll also talk about late night's reaction to what happened to Jimmy Kimmel. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, comedy collides with controversy. ABC pulls Jimmy Kimmel Live after remarks related to the Charlie Kirk murder set off a political firestorm. What does it all mean for free speech? And remembering Robert Redford. His screen presence defined a generation. And beyond Hollywood, he built Sundance into a haven for independent voices. We remember the star, the storyteller, and the visionary. That and more on our Week in Review today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Central Square Theater with Silent Sky, the story of how Henrietta Leavitt, a human computer at Harvard in the early 1900s, changed astronomy. Silent Sky runs through October 5th. CentralSquareTheater.org. And MIT Federal Credit Union, committed to helping homeowners make use of the equity in their home by offering personalized solutions with an MIT FCU home equity loan. NMLS number 699225, federally insured by NCUA.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live from the library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News on the 23rd of, what is this? September. Thank you very much.
See, I don't know the number, you don't know the month.
Yeah, exactly. What is it again? September 23rd. Mayor Wu will join us, as will Andres Nelsons, the music director at the BSO. On the 30th, a week later, at the library, by the way, for an hour with the mayor. The governor will join us for an hour for Ask the Governor. Time now for our weekly media analysis segment, Press Play. Joined live at the library by NBC 10 media maven Sue O'Connell. She's also co-publisher of the South End News and Bay Windows. and you're some other kind of influencer. What are you again?
I'm a news influencer on the TikTok.
Excuse me, news
and
influencer
the Insta.
on the TikTok and the Insta. And next there is Ron Mitchell, who is publisher of the Bay State Banner, which, by the way, congratulations, is celebrating 60 years.
Thank you so
covering
much,
Boston's
Jim,
urban beat this year. It's fabulous.
Yes. We've only had the pleasure of owning it for 2.5 years, so we took over from Mel Miller, and we're happy to keep it going in 60 years. It's quite a legacy.
We're going to talk about that legacy in 60 years in a couple of minutes. Ron, it's great to have you.
Thank you.
But we're going to start with what we were talking about with listeners. How far does Trump go with this, and who's going to, if anyone, stand up? Sue, what do you think?
He's going to go as far as he can go. I mean, I don't know why folks don't understand that the regular laws and rules do not apply to Donald Trump, and he's going to just do what he wants to do. And, I think that folks are missing, some just regular folks are missing the point of this Jimmy Kimmel issue. ABC, I know you guys have said it, they can fire Jimmy, they can suspend him, they can do whatever he wants. They're a private company. They can respond to what a president urges them to do. They can respond to what an audience urges them to do. They can respond to what their affiliates ask them to do. But when the federal government, in the body of the FCC chairperson, says, we're coming after you, and you have business in front of him, the affiliates have a big deal, one of the big groups. They have a big merger coming. That's a violation of the First Amendment. And if he's willing to do it with ABC and Disney and Kimmel on such a high stage, he's coming after everybody.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court has said that that's the coercion.
It's a Supreme Court. The difference between jawboning, it's called, which is urging someone to take down information that's wrong, or saying, your statements don't represent what we think America is, versus threats. That's the difference.
But when the Supreme Court says something it is what it is, it doesn't matter to Donald Trump either.
Correct.
I just want to point that out.
Well, and it doesn't matter what the Supreme Court has said in the past. This Supreme Court is more than willing to say that isn't what we said, or reverse what they said. We shall see. I am of the Sue O'Connell school there, Ron, that he will keep shutting down all criticism that he can until he's stopped by a quarter. I mean, here's a good example. We talk about anticipatory obedience, the term we borrowed from Tim Snyder at Yale. The View, which Brendan Carr, the FCC, said is next. Everybody was waiting to hear, particularly what Whoopi Goldberg would say about the Kimmel firing. And what did they say? Nothing.
Yeah,
they weren't allowed to say anything.
They took that whole segment out of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, they removed
played
the
a
whole
repeat
segment out of the show. Listen, Donald Trump has never been timid. We know he will run roughshod until he is reined in. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court has given him license to run roughshod. And I think what you guys have said earlier is that we limit to his, bluster. There's no limit to his blatant desire to control, manipulate, pay off people. That's how, it's a transactional government now. And I mean, his trip to England is just another example of that. It's all transactional. And if you don't like what I have to say, and you verbally say that, I'm going to silence.
So what's we are so generous. I don't think Marty and I are, but as a people, so generous with our praise for those who allegedly stand up. This is not a media thing, but Alan Garber and Harvard are getting praise every single day, and almost every single day on our news or in the Harvard Crimson, there's another example of a capitulation, whether it's on DEI, trans stuff, whatever it is. There was a trans athlete thing just a couple of days ago. There is capitulation all around, no?
Yes, and what I would say is, and this is, Jamie, your executive producer over there, and I were talking about this earlier.
Jamie?
You know what? Yeah,
he's
what?
that guy over there.
There he is. What are regular people who aren't us doing that aren't talking about this all the time, right? I did a post last week. I went to my high school reunion on Saturday. I went apple picking. Spent the whole weekend last weekend barely speaking about this at all, which is how most people are living their lives. So if you're listening to this, I would urge you to get educated about things like the First Amendment, like what the difference between coercion and job boning are, right? Understanding why some teachers may get fired for this and some teachers will not get fired for expressing opinions, however you view that. Because people are throwing around free speech, First Amendment, what about Biden? Trump is doing this. But, you have all of the information ever made on the planet Earth available to you through AI, through Claude, through Wikipedia, through even Grok. Educate yourself and understand what's happening, because I don't think people really understand how dangerous this is right now.
Yeah, but you educate yourself and you learn, for example, what the law is. And as Ron and you both were saying, and Marjorie says all the time, he doesn't give a damn about the law. So it seems to me, it's one thing if you're a person with great power and wealth, almost all of whom are capitulating, as we've discussed ad nauseum here. But average people have a lot to worry about if you choose to speak up, whether you're in a public setting like a school teacher, whether you work in a private sector business that may be indirectly dependent upon some federal money. So I think the notion, what makes me most nervous, we first discussed this with Chuck Todd and Marty Barron, former editor of the Washington Post, Chuck Todd, formerly of Meet the Press and NBC. Self-censorship in your business, I think, is going to be real, maybe on the margins, but there is going to be a lot of that.
You can't create an environment that's this scary for people that changes the way that, without changing the way that people think about issues and how they place them in the media. It's definitely going to be chilling. And we as a nation, as a group of people, have to push back. We have to protest. Like you said earlier, take a beat from France, even England. I mean, as much coverage as there was of this wonderful, butt-kissing trip to England that Donald took, and I say butt-kissing because everybody fawned over him as usual, the folks in the street in England protested vehemently.
They did.
So
people don't know about the people that were in the hotel. I think they were in a hotel room. They shot all those pictures of Trump and Jeffrey Epstein.
They projected it on the castle.
On a big
Yes,
projector.
projected on the castle.
Yeah, they got arrested, but they did do it. We all picked it up.
But can I mentioned this.
Good trouble.
A
Good
lot.
Good trouble.
And
Good
I
trouble.
want to mention it again. The self-censorship thing, the thing that worries me so much is when ABC fires Kimmel or suspends Kimmel or pays $16 million, everybody knows it. What they don't know is when you or a reporter who works for you decide, I'm not going to say X, because, really, and the example I pick, one of the most honorable, high-profile journalists, I say this all the time, Ruth Marcus, after she left the Washington Post, wrote a long piece in the New Yorker admitting, to her credit, that in 2 columns, she toned down the criticism of Jeff Bezos, her boss, and she toned down the criticism of Donald Trump. We don't know who's toning down what, so we don't know how much of the truth we're actually getting.
And that won't stop until the folks who are making those decisions feel there's a group of folks in the streets or in the community who support them.
Yeah.
I find that in our newspaper, because of who our readership is, no one is encouraging us not to speak freely and not to be aware. I think that everybody in our community, black and brown, progressive community, we're circling the wagons. We're working together to try to get the truth out and to try to push back on the lack of freedoms and equity that's going on in our society. And we've seen it. We saw it in the 60s. We saw it, through the whole last century. So now we are reverting back to that. And I think we have to go back to the same tactics and tools, which is nonviolent protest, which is letting everybody know, threatening people's pockets, boycotting, all those things have to be active. We have to become more active.
Well, yeah, there's another piece. You're talking about we average people, with which I totally agree. Employers like you have to sit down your employees and say, we will stand by you as long as you're telling the truth. I'll give a small example. We mentioned this on the air. After the threats to funding of Corporation for Public Broadcasting became intense before the actual defunding happened, we went to our boss, Dan Lothian, in the newsroom and said, what do we do here? We hope very honest and totally critical of Trump, and his response was, you keep doing exactly what you're doing. And that's what you got to hear from your boss for you to be able to do a responsible job conveying information. What am I wrong?
Okay, so I'm at NBC, right? But I'm also at Bay Windows and
You're
South End News. I'm a TikTok influencer, right? We don't make any money from that.
Yeah.
So if the New York Times or NPR or GBH gets sued by Donald Trump, they have the funds to fight. If Bay Windows or the Bay State Banner gets sued by Donald Trump, we just pack up and go, because there's no way we can fight even sometimes a nuisance lawsuit, right? Because some of us have...
Explain what a nuisance lawsuit is.
A nuisance lawsuit is when you do an editorial or an op-ed or story about a dog walker in the South End who punched somebody in the park. and everyone saw it, and then she decides that it's a problem and then hires a big lawyer and threatens to sue you, and you have to defend yourself even though you're absolutely correct. And if you have libel insurance, you have to deal with your insurance company deals. And it's at this state, I don't want to speak for Ron, but at this state of the local community newspaper business, we don't have the staff or the funds to defend ourselves against just nuisance lawsuits, which likely a Trump lawsuit against a community newspaper or a local newspaper or a local website who's not affiliated with a bigger group would put them right out of business. And that's the danger of trying to temper, or the necessity of trying to temper sometimes what you're publishing. So if it's not worth closing the business down to publish, you find another way to get it out there.
We're talking to, what did you just say? Oh, we're talking to Ron Mitchell from the Bay State Banner. I thought you were about to say something. And Sue O'Connell from NBC 10 Boston.
All I was about to say is that the people that could fight back have enough money to fight back, like ABC and CBS, and they're not. You know, it's different than expecting little small
rich people could just stop spending their money too, and I don't mean that facetiously. If the ruling, just not spend partially what they spend and bring the economy to a bit of a halt and say we're not going to live in this area. But I don't know if it was your caller's point or somebody. A lot of them do think democracy. Peter Thiel, Elon Musk think democracy is really not worthwhile, so they're going to keep working to dismantle democracy.
You know, we also shouldn't forget some of the things that Donald Trump did to shut down speech prior to this Kimmel incident. National Public Radio, for example, we all read that the first station to announce the shutting of its doors in Pennsylvania, Penn State. And this was not a tiny little station, by the way.
Major.
The feeling was that it would be the little tiny ones that just couldn't afford it. This, I think, had funding of somewhere in the neighborhood of $7 million, half from the feds, half from Penn State. And even though Penn State says we're having a tough time so we can't meet our half, I worry, and I have no evidence to support this, they get federal money too. And I wonder if they worry that if they cause an NPR station to survive, that there are problems for them. Who knows, right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely think that there's an accounting going on and there's a list being kept and that they're evaluating. There's somebody in the administration who's keeping track of these things, and listen.
And that was the primary reason for the total defunding of public radio, public television. That's why they removed the millions and millions of dollars that they, pulled out of the federal budget.
I mean,
tried to, and I don't know what the court case status is, but tried to claw back.
It's an amazing moment.
Direct attack at public radio, at NPR, and all of the additional local radio stations. Because again, those local stations tell the truth on a basic level, and it's very hard to curb their message. So if you stop the funding at the top level, that's how you approach it, and that's how they've attacked it. And I think, as I said, we as a nation and as a group of listeners and viewers and news receivers and news makers have to all get together and push back. Got to circle the wagons.
Thing I wanted to mention, though, having to do with local TV stations, I think we've underestimated the power of Sinclair Broadcasting. I didn't know they now own WJAR in Rhode Island. Wow, something just happened with my microphone.
We have a very powerful voice.
Yeah, and a station up in Maine, and they're kind of a place where they have a script that they're supposed to stick to. It's very right-wing, very conservative. They own 178 stations nationwide. In fact, that they're going to run a Charlie Kirk tribute on tonight in the space of where Jimmy Kimmel's show normally is. And if you're getting this, if 4, 5, and 7, all the stations here were owned by Sinclair, we'd be getting a very different local news broadcast than we are getting from our independent stations.
And this is a flashback to what was happening in the 50s and 60s, where African American artists on national television shows, they wouldn't run them down south. The radio and TV networks wouldn't run those programs that had people of color in them, and this is a flashback to that same thing, where large broadcast, conglomerates are saying we don't want that kind of a message on our platform.
Betty White's talk show. She had an African American co-host. Betty White was.
Is that true?
Yeah, people don't know that she was one of the first female talk. She was, I think, the first female talk show host. She had a national show during the day, and her lifelong friend, who I believe was a dancer as well, he was on the show almost every day. And Southern Station said we don't want to carry it.
I think they held hands or touched each other.
Right, they touched each other, and that was.
And
the answer to that too, Marjorie, is that it's one thing if there are also a bevy of local stations. So if you've got one conservative station that's following the script of what their national syndicate is telling them to do, that's one thing. But if they're the only station, which is the case in many of these incidents, that's what the problem is as well. And people don't know that you're watching a Sinclair, and they did this before Trump.
They did.
You watch somebody reading an editorial, and then you tune to the Sinclair station in another market. They're saying the same exact thing. So it's not just standards. It's not how we're going to cover the story. It's almost completely propaganda.
Can I say one more thing? By the way, it's not just the Penn State station is not that small.
Yeah.
We had layoffs here at GBH. I think we are either the largest or one of the largest corporation for public broadcasting beneficiaries. Rhode Island. They led voluntary buyouts for our former boss. I love the Globe story. I don't know if you read this. The employees said they didn't want to talk on the record for fear of retaliation, which reminds us of the story about that same boss when she was our boss, when the Globe wrote, a management style was autocratic and dismissive. They cite instances of yelling in meetings, disparaging employees behind their backs. Essentially, a leopard doesn't change her spots in this case. But the bottom line is the people there suffer, and people here suffer. It's on the margins at GBH, but it is. Can I ask what we asked the listeners yesterday, which I know there's no hard answer to? My deepest fear is not just what Trump's doing, but that the average person really doesn't care that much about it. Intellectually, they may say, well, this is a problem. We believe in free speech, whatever that means.
People are going to wake up. I am so tired of hearing. We all got busy lives, and we all have to worry about the price of butter, and we all have to worry about taking the kid to the soccer game. I mean, come on. You have time.
All right, let me tell you something. All right, so we recently read The Diary of Anne Frank again in my household, right? And we did it as an exploratory reminder of and granted, Anne Frank was a girl, a teenager, but while the world was collapsing around her, she's busy worrying about the guy who's living with them and how she can't flush the toilet and how her parents are bickering and they won't let her do something, right? And her parents are also representing sort of the day-to-day life of having to live in this attic and being under stress, but also having petty, regular little fights, right? So it was instructive for our family so that when my daughter is complaining about something like, I think the Honeycrisp apples are not out anymore, and those are my favorite, I can go, well, that's good to consider, but the democracy is also falling. So we have to do a bit of a balance
We have to wake up. We want to talk about the 60th anniversary of your newspaper, though, before we go here.
How are you celebrating?
Yeah.
Well, we have a year-long set of a whole bunch of different events. We're starting off with a special section in our first publication after the 60th anniversary, which comes out on October 2nd. And that'll be a kind of look at the last decade, authored by Ken Cooper, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who also...
Where did he used to work?
He used to work at GBH.
Yes, he did. And
before that, the Boston Globe.
And all around.
Go ahead.
Yes.
He's wonderful. He's really great.
So he's authoring a look at the last 10 years, kind of talking about, it's kind of buffered by Trump on both ends. It's, the end of Obama's term, and then a lot of other very positive things that actually did happen within our state and local politics, where there's a lot of more legislators of color nationally, locally as well.
Did you bring pictures, by the way?
We did bring some.
Can we pop some up and maybe tell us
So that's our very first, that's the very first issue right there. That was published September 25th, 1965.
Wow.
So that was the very first issue. And as we go back and look, and we're doing a lot of research on the various different issues over the years, a lot of the issues are still the same. And, it's a reoccurring, cyclical. News is cyclical, issues are cyclical. And there are some of the old covers from the late 60s and early 70s.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to have a handful of forums.
Party. Is there going to be a party?
There will be a gala
in
May of next year. We're going to, but before we get to that, we're going to have forums and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Fabulous.
There'll be a whole schedule coming out in that issue that talks about various different events celebrating a year-long celebration of the banner.
And you can support by subscribing, buying ads, and doing all sorts of things.
What's the website?
It's BayStateBanner.com, and we also have an adjacent nonprofit, the Banner Institute for Community News. We founded that recently, so that's something that you can donate to nonprofit-wise, and you'll hear a lot more about that as well.
That means it is tax deductible.
Tax deductible.
That's right.
Yes. Please support local news. It is an important part of our community, just like you support GBH, local news, Bay Windows, and various other publications. It's important. as I said, the only pushback we have is if everybody stands together. We must demand, we must protest, we must push back.
Happy 60th to you, Andre, and all of your
colleagues.
colleagues.
Thank you very much for coming in.
I really appreciate it.
We have been speaking with NBC 10 media maven Sue O'Connell, is also co-publisher of the South End News and Bay Windows, as well as Ron Mitchell, publisher of the Bay State Banner, which is celebrating 60 years covering Boston's urban beat this year. Thank you both very much for coming in. The show continues here in Boston. For you listening on any PM, you can tune into the fabulous 413 starting at 3 this afternoon. But thanks for tuning in to us. Sorry, I sneezed. Coming up after the new news, 89.7 former Congressman Joe Kennedy is going to talk about what he's been doing down in Appalachia and what the Democrats are doing and what his uncle RFK Jr. is doing. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browder and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And GM Roth Design Remodeling. Dreams delivered. With custom kitchens, bathrooms, and additions. Serving New England for over 39 years. Learn more at gmroth.com. Ken Burns and Lynn Novick go beyond the tales of gangsters, flappers, and speakeasies to reveal a divided nation in the throes of momentous transformation. Watch Prohibition tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browder, ahead on Hour 2 of BPR live from the Boston Public Library. We'll start the noon hour with former Congressman Joe Kennedy III on the future of the Democratic Party, his work with the Groundwork Project, and what's up with that uncle of his at Health and Human Services.
I'm Marjorie Egan, then it's Live Music Friday with a musical take on activism in the news with activist singer-songwriter Evan Greer, ahead of an album drop. All that and our Two More Things segment, Such As It Is. Next, on Hour 2 of BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump says on social media he and Chinese President Xi Jinping made progress toward approving a deal on TikTok in their phone call today. He says they have agreed to meet at the APEC summit in South Korea late next month. Trump also said he will visit China early next year. TikTok's a Chinese-owned company has been under threat of being banned in the U.S. over national security concerns. TikTok's parent company is ByteDance. A short-term spending bill to fund the government through November 21st has passed the House. Now it moves to the Senate. Speaker Mike Johnson had a message for the Senate's Democratic leader.
The ball is in Chuck Schumer's court. I hope he does the right thing. I hope he does not choose to shut the government down and inflict pain unnecessarily on the American people. I hope that they will vote on this clean short-term CR so that we can continue the work to get our appropriations done.
All but one Democrat in the House, Representative Jared Golden of Maine, voted against the measure. The Senate is scheduled to vote later today on two different spending measures, one sponsored by Democrats, the other by Republicans. In a surprise move this morning, a panel of vaccine advisors to the federal government tabled their proposed change to the vaccine schedule. That schedule would have dropped the current recommendation that all children receive the hepatitis B shot at birth. The panel, which Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. stacked with people who have long questioned the safety of vaccines, are also now saying that the Vaccine for Children program should not cover a combined shot known as MMRV, measles, mumps, rubella, and chickenpox. Israel has launched a wave of airstrikes in South Lebanon and issued warnings of further attacks displacing hundreds of residents NPR's Jana Raff has the latest from Beirut.
Israel and Lebanon agreed to a ceasefire last November. But Israel has been launching attacks almost every day against what it says are Hezbollah targets. It warned residents of 3 Lebanese villages Thursday to leave ahead of more strikes. It said were aimed at preventing Hezbollah from rebuilding military infrastructure. Lebanon's prime minister and president said the attacks violated UN resolutions and were a setback to international peace efforts. The Israeli strikes have also solidified opposition by Hezbollah and its allies to a Lebanese government plan to disarm the militant group. Hezbollah says it won't give up its weapons while Israel is attacking and occupying Lebanese territory. Jana Raff, NPR News, Beirut.
U.S. stocks continue to trade higher this morning. The Dow Jones Industrial Average has gained 57 points. It's at 46,200. The S&P has gained 13 points at 6645, and the Nasdaq is up now 87 points. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Massachusetts Eversource customers who heat their homes with gas can expect to pay about 13% more than last year. Numbers based on the utilities filing with the State Department of Public Utilities yesterday. If approved by the DPU, Eversource will begin charging the higher rate on November 1st when its peak season rates go into effect. Globe reports that Eversource attributes most of the increase to expenses for maintenance and infrastructure investment. Eversource has roughly 640,000 gas customers in Massachusetts. And the fate of pay raises for Massachusetts bar advocates now in the hands of the state Supreme Judicial Court, and Mass Live reporting that the justices will weigh in on the question, can individual judges set pay rates for court-appointed defense attorneys? It's a question that's come up several times since many private defense attorneys or bar advocates across the state stopped taking on new cases in late May amid a pay raise dispute with the state legislature. The bar advocates sought raises of $35 an hour for the lowest level cases they take on, bringing the hourly pay up to $100 an hour. Currently, the advocates make $75 an hour for district court cases, up from $65 before the legislature acted. Briefings are due at the SJC in October, and then the justices will hear oral arguments on the questions in November. Sports, Red Sox on the road, opening a series with the Tampa Bay Rays in Tampa Bay tonight. Partly cloudy, high near 80 today, 77 right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher is committed to helping clients stay on track to reach their financial goals and enjoy a comfortable retirement. FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are broadcasting live. Thank you from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News on Tuesday. Tuesday's the 23rd, I think. Back at the Boston Public Library, we're going to be joined by the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, and on the 30th, we're going to be joined also here at the library by the Governor, and Andres Nelson's the music director of the Boston Symphony is going to be with us on Tuesday as well. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there. We're joined now at the BPL desk by Joe Kennedy III, former congressman from Massachusetts. He embarked on a journey to the Mississippi Delta and some other areas too this summer as part of a grassroots organizing effort he is leading called the Groundwork Project. He'll describe it in a minute. He was following in the footsteps of his grandfather, Robert F. Kennedy, who in 1967 also visited the Mississippi Delta and had this to say about the extreme poverty he saw there.
As American citizens, that we could be doing more for those who are poor, and particularly for our children who have nothing to do with being asking to be born into this world, but don't have enough to eat and no school to go to and insufficient clothes, so that they're going to lead a very difficult, unhappy life through the rest of their existence. I think that's our responsibility, not just as citizens of the state of Mississippi, but our responsibility as American citizens. And while this condition continues to exist, it's a terrible reflection on our society, on all of us, no matter what part of the country we happen to live.
Boy, could we use some of that today. Joe Kennedy III is also president of Citizens Energy. Congressman, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me back.
Our pleasure.
Thank you very much for joining us, Congressman Kennedy. So, Jim mentioned following in your grandfather's footsteps. Groundwork is about going to places like Mississippi, Oklahoma, West Virginia. What are you doing? What is Groundwork?
Groundwork is an organization that I started after I left office to kind of do what we're supposed to be doing as Americans, which is looking out for each other. And so we go to 3 regions of the country: the Plains, the Deep South Appalachia, places that often don't get the same amount of attention, certainly politically, but also turns out civically. The organizations that are there end up being kind of right of center, a lot of churches and such, but for left of center folks that are struggling, like in the Mississippi Delta or in certain hollers across parts of West Virginia or in the plains out in Oklahoma, where there's not a whole lot of places that you can go to for help. And so there are extraordinary people, though, in these communities, Jim, as you know, that are just doing incredible things without the resources, the help, the connections, the spotlight, and just making it work because they care about their neighbors. And so Groundwork helps support those individuals. We call them these hyperlocal organizers that are, it's not on a specific issue per se. The organizations we fund are on a whole bunch of different issues, from workers' rights to and labor stuff to voter registration to climate to women's rights, reproductive rights. But you meet these folks. I remember walking into a diner in Huntsville with Angela Curry from United Women of Color, and she shook every hand in that diner. She worked that thing like she was in there, right? And you just sit there and go, like, these people are just magic. And she is trying to make sure that Huntsville is responding to the needs of its people. Sometimes because in these places, the government isn't. And that's actually by design, not by unintentionally.
Is there a political end in addition to, obviously part of the end is to make people live better lives, but is there a political end as well?
Look, from somebody that's spent a decent chunk of my life in public life and in public office, I don't think you can. I am unaware, I should say, of any place that doesn't have where an accountable and accessible political system that also can then guarantee a high quality of life for everybody, right? Like government, the structures by which our societies run are set by government, and so you need to have those institutions. So what we end up supporting is these local organizations that can help support the civic infrastructure, right? As you both would know, if you want to run for office in Boston or Cambridge or Brookline, there's a bunch of different organizations that are happy to give you their opinion and happy to educate you about it and can pull people together, like literally like this.
Can you put your mic up just about perfect, thank you.
That can pull a group of people together there so that I could go here if you're running for office and say, hey, what do you think about X, Y, or Z? Or here's my plan, give me some advice or feedback. If you're in rural parts of Mississippi Delta, there aren't those organizations. And so if you're trying to run,
you need an infrastructure.
You can't get people there.
Yeah.
So,
well, you just said, too, that in general, government is not responsive in some of these areas and that it might be by design. So what does that mean?
That means, Marjorie, it means that if you go back and look at the state constitution in 1890 in Mississippi, and at the Constitutional Convention after Reconstruction, when they reformulated the state constitution, the folks organizing it said the explicit design, this is almost a direct quote, an explicit design here is to exclude the Negro. It is to make sure they cannot vote. So like that.
Okay.
Okay, so like they weren't shy about it. It was by design and by intent, and it has ramifications, right? Mississippi has dozens of infractions that if you commit one, state laws, right? That if you commit one, you lose your right to vote. Now, some would say, okay, well, if you're convicted of murder, maybe that's the case. You're going to be locked up forever, so you can't vote. Maybe. You know who steals wood? Timber larceny? Think of it. This is, you're on the Gulf, right? Gulf Coast or, the Deep South. It's not exactly cold aside from a couple months in winter, where for certain people, if you can't heat your home, it's cold.
Right.
So who's stealing wood?
Poor people.
If you're convicted of timber larceny, you lose your right to vote. Mississippi, I think, has the highest percentage of felony disenfranchised folks in the country.
Wow.
So,
is that considered a felony, or is it just like it's a felony to steal wood?
And I can't remember if there's a quantity there, but so the barriers that are put up, you will appreciate this one. And Mississippi's not alone in this, but in the last gubernatorial race, The state laws there said that you had to have enough ballots available to match 60% of the voter turnout, or 60% of the registered voters in any county. Fine. Voter turnout doesn't normally pass 60%. Fine. But if you're in Mississippi with the highest percentage of a black population of any state in the country, and you're in Jackson, which is 80% black, Hinds County, and you're a Democrat running, you have to keep that turnout well above 60%. Guess which county ran out of ballots? Not only did they run out of ballots, Marjorie, guess which, so they said, hey, stay in line because we'll bring more ballots. Guess which county then ran out of toner to print more ballots?
Same one.
Same one. Now, Boston also ran out of ballots in a recent election too. So that, these things happen, but the fact that it happens in a gubernatorial race that was the closest one in decades in Hinds County, where in order to win, you need to have 60%, or over 60%, I'm not sure you get the benefit of the doubt anymore.
So if the head of the Democratic Party or leading Democrat was here, they would say it's very wonderful what Joe Kennedy III is doing, but there are no electoral possibilities for us there. So good for him. We'll pat him on the head.
They would be so wrong.
Why are they wrong?
Because
wrong?
I can't say it publicly on a radio, but
say something very much like it. Go ahead.
Because their head is someplace where it shouldn't be, right? So thank you.
3 people understood that. Explain that to the other people, can you please? Thank you.
So 2 things, Jim, and I could go off on this for a long time.
Please.
Right? But one, I would be willing to I will bet you a trip to Mississippi right here, right now, that a year from now you will be talking about a governor or a Senate race in Mississippi that'll be closer than you expect. I will bet you that right now.
I've been to Jackson and Tupelo, by the way, just for whatever.
How many times and when was it?
When I was a young legal services
lawyer. I've never been there. Never.
There was one of the most brilliant legal services lawyers from North Mississippi Rural Legal Assistance, Lou Myers, who was breaking ground on every single issue. And when he won a huge case to celebrate that case in the Tupelo, Mississippi, the Klan surrounded the police station armed with guns, and legal services people from around the country went down there to support Lou, and it was terrifying.
Jeribu Hill runs the Mississippi Worker Center. She is from Harlem. She is a Skadden Fellow. She's one of 2 Skadden Fellows in the state. Same magic, right? So Mississippi is red. Mississippi is a non-voting state, and it's the non-voting state partially by very intentional design. This is a state that is, I believe, actually purple. We had a governor's race a couple years ago where he lost by 3 points, right? 26,000 votes. So you've got a young candidate there in his 40s, a DA that I think will give a very competitive race to Senator Sidney Hyde-Smith, 1. 2, and this is the part that I can go on. Look, there's a short-term thing where leaders of the Democratic Party need to win races because of the urgency that we all well know, particularly living in Massachusetts. And that's true. And there's an urgency that they have to focus on that. One of the reasons why we're in this mess is because we only focus on the places where Democrats are, where the concentration of power is at the moment, right? I heard this a lot from my old congressional district where folks said, oh my God, Donald Trump won Fall River. Can you believe it? For the past, since John Kerry ran for president,
as you know.
Yes, since John Kerry ran for president, the percentage of a Democratic candidate received in Fall River for president has decreased every single cycle since John Kerry ran. So if anybody was shocked that Fall River went for Trump, it's because you haven't been paying attention for 20 freaking years. So what do? You find, if you go to these places, you find these folks that are doing incredible work knitting a community together. You support them. And you help, they have solutions to problems that we haven't come up with, and you learn from them. You learn how to talk about these issues, and you do something about it.
So can I stay with your trip there for a second? You weren't alive when your grandfather was assassinated. No. As I mentioned you off the air, I saw your grandfather speak in Philadelphia, one of the most inspirational things ever. I didn't realize till this morning, I'm sure you know this, you're 2 years older than Bobby Kennedy was when he was assassinated. When you're down there following in his footsteps with a message that is very similar to what your grandfather advanced, what does that feel like for you as a human being? What does that do to you?
This might surprise you a bit, right? One, I don't give that a whole lot of thought.
Really?
No, I mean, I guess at some point, you know it, but at another point, look, I think my family means different things to different folks, and I understand that. to me, it's our family's story about the deprivation that generations ago they experienced in Ireland in the midst of a famine. And that migration story that was shared by millions of others in this country. And when they got here in the shores of Boston, they weren't exactly in East Boston, Maverick Square, they weren't exactly welcome with open arms. But this is a story that generations of my family has told. And so when my grandfather was, whether it was in Delano with Cesar Chavez or down with Medgar Evers in Mississippi, that work has been, from my perspective, about people that believe in the promise of this country and are doing what they can to try to actually make it live up to its ideals. And the fact is, we've got a lot more work to do. And if, I ain't Bobby Kennedy, they're not doing this. It's not, Mississippi is better than it was back then, thank God, for a lot of work that a lot of people have done. But a nation takes us all to try to do what we can to make it better. And so if you can do a little bit to make it better.
We're talking to Joe Kennedy III.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about Joe Kennedy III is
Joe was fine. I don't know how many others are up here, right?
So I was thinking I should have called you congressman, but that's okay.
You did call him congressman.
I did the first time. So we'll be more familiar the next time. We'll be
Thank
Joe.
you. Joe's
so
good.
is that in places like Massachusetts, which are very blue states, and other blue states across the country, that one of the problems for the Democrats, and Fall River, of course, is in Massachusetts, is that Democrats talk a lot. We talked about child care, and your wife has done yeoman's work in child care, but child care is essentially the same disaster now as it was 40 years ago. It's too expensive. It's really hard to get good child care, blah, 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 blah. Housing, the Democrats, I think, were really late to realize what a disaster housing is, how unaffordable it's become. And I think late to realize how in poor towns like a Fall River or like a Lawrence, it's tough because you see a lot of immigrants coming here, and there are a lot of people that resent taking the jobs, blah, 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 blah. So the Democrats need to get things done, and that's one of the things we're not doing, and we're overregulated and really slow about doing things that should take less time.
Was that a question?
Yeah.
To respond?
Yeah.
So, Marjorie, I would say respectfully, yes and no, right? I think if it were just a question of getting things done, objectively speaking, as objective as it can be, those first, Joe Biden administration got more stuff done than any other administration in modern American history, perhaps since LBJ, period. So it's not just a question of getting it done. You got to communicate that, and there's other challenges there that a Biden administration had. But in terms of getting it done, they got it done. I think a big piece to this is, in this day and age, we don't all receive media from the same sources, right? We're not all talking from the same, we're not interpreting the same set of facts from the same, 3 or 4 news stations. And so you end up having people that if you go on X today, the narrative that is being pushed out by influencers on X is very different than the narrative that you guys are talking about. It is a different country. A guy that spent his career in the military, and he said to me the other day, how do Donald Trump supporters support this? And I said, because that's not the story that they're hearing. They're hearing a completely different story, which is, by the way, what happens when you go to West Virginia.
Or Mississippi.
Yeah. You hear the story. And again, it's not to say that that story is right, but it is to say that if that's their story, I'm not going to convince them by saying, hey, you think 2 + 2 is 5, it's 4. They're pretty set at what I said. So what do you need? The same thing that if Tucker Carlson walked into my living room and tried to convince me that Donald Trump was the greatest, human being ever created. No, I don't there's nothing you can tell me that Tucker coming from you that's going to make me believe that. If you don't have credibility in a community such that people are going to receive what you say, again, I'm going to go off on a tangent here. The best description I have, and roll with me for a second, Marjorie,
sure,
about what a Democratic Party does wrong is in the kind of Cambridge sense, Paul Farmer-esque, and we got to follow Paul Farmer. For those movie
Partners
fans
in Health, for those who don't know, one of the great leaders ever.
One of the great public health leaders in this country who pioneered this field of medicine called medical anthropology that said, hey, look, it's one thing for me as a doctor to tell you what's wrong with you. It's another thing to treat you. And if I'm going to treat you, I have to put this in context so that you're going to understand it. And that's going to be different if you're in Cambridge versus the Central Plateau of Haiti versus Peru or Bolivia or some other place. For the movie buffs out there, Patch Adams, the end of Patch Adams is what's wrong with the Democratic Party? If anybody's ever seen Patch Adams, you got Philip Seymour Hoffman and Robin Williams. And Philip Seymour Hoffman's this brilliant doctor who has a patient, Betty White. Have you seen the movie?
No.
I'm writing it down right now.
So you've not seen this movie
No,
either? Has anybody else in this
no.
crowd seen? Thank you. We're going to have this conversation. Great. Okay. So at the end of the movie, Philip Seymour Hoffman says, I got this patient. I know what's wrong with her. I can outdiagnose every doctor in this hospital, but I can't make her eat. How do I help Betty White eat? Scene cuts. Robin Williams says, can't help you. And then he comes back and says, you want to make help Betty White eat? The scene cuts again, and she wakes up in a kiddie pool full of spaghetti. There is no medical diagnosis that I am aware of where the prescription is a kiddie pool full of spaghetti. But what Robin Williams understood in that movie, what Paul Farmer understood, is there's a difference between a doctor telling you what's wrong with you, a Democratic Party, and a advocate that is going to meet you where you are and help you get treated. And in order to do that, I have to understand you. I have to understand, yes, what ails you, but I have to work with you to help you solve the problem. So rather than a Democratic Party telling West Virginia, hey, you know what you need to do? Become a nurse and move to Pittsburgh. Sit there and say, what is your vision for West Virginia? You built the industrial might of this country. The energy that helped froth my latte this morning, right, might have come from a rock of coal that your family dug out of the ground and helped powered literally the industrial might of this nation. So how about thank you? And you got a vision for West Virginia's your home. What can we do to help you recognize that dream? We don't do that.
We're talking to Joe Kennedy. Well, one of the things you're doing in your day job to help people recognize the dream, which is affordable energy, you were with the governor, lieutenant governor, I think the secretary of energy or whatever the title is in Massachusetts. Yesterday, she's got this big thing around energy affordability, and it incorporates a piece that you have been advancing and I think is already in place in California.
It is.
Could you briefly describe what you're doing?
I've never briefly done anything, but I'll try.
Can you briefly describe?
Right.
Thank you very much.
So, energy is one of the driving costs. Energy's going up everywhere. And it was going up anywhere. The cost of energy were going up even before an AI boom, but energy costs are going up. One of the challenges with that, particularly now with renewable energy, is like the generation of energy doesn't cost all that much for wind or solar. It's just the sun is shining and the sun can shine. There's more sunny days that doesn't cost all that much more to generate it. To move it, though, actually is expensive. So you've got these big high voltage transmission lines that moves power a long distance, and then it hits a substation that goes into a distribution system, which are the telephone poles outside your house, and then it gets to your house. And as part of your energy bill, we have to pay for that part too. The challenge is that when you talk about, hey, let's do energy efficiency measures, that doesn't solve, you might lose less energy, but you still got to pay for that system. So there haven't been many actual reforms to say, hey, how can we get savings out of a transmission and distribution system? What my dad actually pioneered years ago, Jim, was a way that citizens, we've started helping to finance these big transmission lines, but we then use our portion of the profits off of transmission line and we give them away to local communities. So we have the largest low-income community solar program in the country, 39 megawatt solar farm in Southern California that helps 12,000 low-income households get $300 off their energy bills, completely renewable solar, for 30 years. So they've got that for the next 18 years. We then did a second power line. We're giving away electric vehicles, about $650,000, $600,000 worth of EVs every year for the next 26 years to nonprofits in San Diego County. So we're in the midst of a regulatory review for a deal with Pacific Gas and Electric where we will finance $1 billion of grid upgrades, stuff that has to go to make our system more efficient. Citizens will finance $1 billion of it. We will give back to the customers of PG&E nearly $500 million to help pay for their energy bills. So Governor Healy said, hey, that model looks pretty cool. Could we try to do that here, but with a distribution system, which has never been done before? And the answer was, well, you couldn't because the law didn't allow it. And she said, well, I can fix that. And so she drafted a law to help us bring those savings to a distribution system that could allow organizations like Citizens to help invest in it, but then turn our profits back to you all to create that savings. The costs don't go up. It's still our power line, it's still the same power line. It's just local communities get to share in the profits rather than have that get sucked back out to shareholders.
Check it out at Citizens Energy. So a couple of weeks ago, you and one of your relatives called on your uncle, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to resign as head of Health and Human Services. For people who didn't see your pretty specific text, why'd you do that?
Because, look, this is hard for me. Our family's been through a lot, and we're a tight-knit family, and You never criticize folks publicly. That was just like, you never did it. I care a lot about my uncle. I care a lot about his kids. I think this has been very hard for him as well. I'm not in touch with him as much as I used to be. I have no doubt that Bobby genuinely believes that what he is doing is best for the country and that he sees it wrong and he's trying to right it. Because he's endured an enormous cost at what he's doing. And I think, a lot of pain. All of that being said, he is destroying the public health infrastructure across this country, and people are getting sick, and people are dying. And, when you're going to get before the United States Senate and mislead the public and denigrate the office of HHS, which is the highest public health official in this country that is supposed to care for our health and well-being, I don't know what else to do. I obviously didn't think he was going to do it, but people are hurt and getting hurt, and more people will get sick.
Well, I can take it one step. For experts, as you know, say that his policies are going to kill people.
Yeah.
We should mention the advisors, that most of them who were handpicked by Robert Kennedy Jr. did vote that the combined measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine is not recommended before the age year-old. So that's a long time to be without a vaccine.
So look, I think one of the hard parts in public health, right, and your audience will certainly know this very well, is that when you engage in population health measures, there's always a risk, right? There are side effects. There are people that get harmed by it, right? The risk of even the safest medical intervention is not nothing. And when you do that intervention, then millions or tens of millions or hundreds of millions of times, people do get hurt. Part of what government has to weigh is, does the harm in that one offset the health of the other 100 million? And those are very tough choices to have to make. I have no doubt that the people that Bobby tries to speak for are in the midst of enormous pain because their kids or loved ones are sick. And we need to understand that and address it. This is not the way you do that. Casting doubt and causing confusion and fracturing the structures that have created these advancements aren't how you do it. And by the way, if you thought that our health system was corrupt, and there's plenty of issues with the health system, fine. Britain, France, EU, Israel, plenty of these other advanced health systems are still vaccinating their public, right? I mean, you'd have to be alleging a massive global conspiracy on the level that has never been before seen in human history in order to.
Can I ask you one last thing about this, and then we'll say goodbye? I'd love you to come back, Marjorie would too. We care about this energy thing, and if you come back to describe in more detail, not just what you described a minute ago, but also other thoughts you have about energy affordability. You said when I first asked you the question, you have no doubt that he believes these things. I barely know Robert Kennedy. I've interviewed him. We've interviewed him a few times years ago when he was a brilliant environmental lawyer, and I use the word brilliant intentionally. I find it hard to believe that somebody that smart can believe this phony, deadly science stuff. And I, maybe unfairly, but tell me, see it as purely opportunism. That he knows who he's working for, he knows he has a slot, he knows what that guy wants to hear, and if people's lives are damaged, in some cases beyond repair, as a result of it, that's a price he's willing to pay. Is that unfair to your uncle?
I'm going to let my uncle speak for him because I certainly can't speak for him. I think the only thing I would say is I think he harbored some of these ideas about vaccines and others before his time in this administration. But we'll leave it at that. One thing I would say, it is a difficult time across this country now for a lot of people, whether that's in Mississippi or in Massachusetts and literally every place in between. One of the places that actually gives me hope about this and our pathway through it, something we haven't talked about yet, but at some point maybe, is Northern Ireland. And I spent a couple of years doing a lot of work over there.  They have found a way not without its bumps and bruises, but to make sure, to preserve issues of identity. No Catholic can tell a Protestant in Northern Ireland you can't be Protestant. No Protestant can tell a Catholic you can't be Catholic. But they went through the worst of a 30-year guerrilla civil war, known as the Troubles, and have come out of it the other side with the lowest unemployment rate in the UK, the happiest region of the UK, and a bright spot about the future. And again, that's not without challenge. But they have found a way to balance identity and community. And as I look through the challenges that we're wrestling with at the moment, one is you have political leadership there that is trying to solve those problems rather than trying to exploit them. But there is a way to do this, and if people are looking for an answer, it might be one good place to look.
What's the website for Groundwork Project?
Groundworkproject.com, and snoop around. Love to have your support. I didn't hear you accept my bet about you coming down to Mississippi. You conveniently pivoted, but I will say
we would do it in a second.
I've never been there.
The last time I called in.
Yeah, you were walking with Jim McGovern. Is that not correct?
Yeah.
I was walking with Jim McGovern and Monty's March, pushing a shopping cart with a radio transmitter down the side of a highway. Yeah. And you promised me you would be there the next year. That was November.
Nice to see you, Joe Kennedy. We'll see you in Mississippi. We'll be there. I'm serious. We'll do it. Let's talk.
Thank you very much for
Kennedy.
coming in. Thank you very much for your good work. We're speaking with former Congressman Joe Kennedy III. For more information, again, the website for Groundwork is groundworkproject.com. Coming up after this quick break, time for some music. It's Live Music Friday with trans activist and musician Evan, having trouble saying that word, Evan Greer. Sorry about that, Evan. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. Listen to BPR and 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
President Trump's immigration crackdown has placed thousands of people in ICE custody. A facility in Texas has had major problems.
It was just heartbreaking story after heartbreaking story. They also told me that the food and the water were making them sick.
I'm Ari Shapiro, a rare look inside this facility and its conditions on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865. And the Hanover Theater, Broadway star Joanna Day leads Doubt, a parable. In a Bronx Catholic school in the 1960s, suspicion sparks a battle over truth and faith. September 18th through October 5th. Tickets at thehanovertheater.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. September 23rd at the library, an hour of Ask the Mayor with Michelle Wu. September 30th at the library, an hour of Ask the Governor with Maura Healey. You made it to another edition of Live Music Friday. This week we're joined by singer-songwriter Evan Greer. Evan's an activist, artist, debuting her new album, I say the letters, right? AMAB, and you'll explain them later. ACAB, I know what they stand for. On Friday the 19th, she also has an album release show on Saturday. That'd be tomorrow at Deep Cuts in Medford. Go to evangreer, GREER.org. Before we chat with Evan, let's listen to some music. Here she is performing $5. Welcome to you all.
Thanks so much, Jim. $5 at the door. 60 kids, 7 bands, only 4 chords. Pass the hat to cover gas. Pass out pamphlets, stop the war. $5 at the door. $5 at the door. At the local veterans of foreign wars. In the basements, in the warehouse, in the squats, in the bookstores. $5 at the door. $5 at the door. We were angry, we were hungry, we were bored. Making magic in the cracks between the cops and the landlords. $5 at the door. $5 at the door. To those problematic kings who we adored. We said we were all the same, then we became what we deplored. $5 at the door. $5 at the door. When we were young and we were anxious and unsure, we knew what we were against, finding out what we were for. $5 at the door. It was only $5 at the door. It was only $5 at the door. It was only $5 at the door.
Evan Greer, Evan, you want to join us? That was great, all of you. That was fabulous. EvanGreer.org, EvanGreer.org. Welcome.
That's right.
Put that baby on right there.
Deep Cuts in Medford tomorrow night. We're going to tell you how to get tickets for that whole event. So introduce members of the band. Who we listen to
Yeah,
now?
absolutely. We've got Raph over here on the violin.
Hey, Raph, that was great.
We got Casey Neal, who produced this whole record on guitar, who flew all the way in from Portland, Oregon. We got Lay on the cajon. We got Megan on the upright bass. And we got Allie singing some harmony vocals with me. And I will just say, all of these people basically learned these songs yesterday.
Didn't sound like it, actually.
Yeah, it's not like you're playing it forever. So what's $5 at the door?
Yeah, so, this is sort of it's not a hagiography, but it's perhaps a tribute to the kind of DIY punk scene that I grew up in here in Boston, playing shows in basements in Allston and the Lucy Parsons Center bookstore and places like that, because there aren't a lot of venues here, and the ones that are want to charge you money to use them.
Okay.
And so for those of us, in this scene, we were really building it ourselves. Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Before we talk more about you, let's talk about us, okay? You were telling us before a wonderful story about a wee Evan Greer. Can we hear about that little kid, please?
Oh, it's true. Yeah, I was saying it was kind of uncanny to hear your voices coming from actual humans because I mostly heard them out of the radio in the back of my parents' Subaru. Although I did say there was a debate because my mom was a GBH person and my dad is a WBUR person.
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
It's the last time we'll talk about him, by the way. Let's be clear. So tell us about the album a little bit.
Yeah, so this record is called AMAB ACAB, which AMAB stands for Assigned Male at Birth, and ACAB stands for something I cannot say on NPR. Oh. But let's say that it's a slogan used by punks and activists around the world to criticize the system of policing, and particularly the system of racially unjust policing that has dominated most of modern history. And so it's a little bit of a middle finger at the fascists, which perhaps we need in this particular moment in history. But to me, again, it's sort of a bit tongue-in-cheek as well of recognizing that for trans folks, we're often kind of pigeonholed as like, oh, well, you must sing trans music. And actually, we sing about all kinds of stuff. We're just like everyone else. We have a wide range of interests. There are songs on this album about singing karaoke with your partner and songs about rising up against
Did you write everything?
Authoritarianism. Yeah, these are all my songs.
They're great. They really are terrific.
Oh,
they
thanks
really
so much,
are.
Jim.
Speaking about the moment, Evan, Queers Against Censorship, you got those signs up there in front of your bandmates. What's that about?
Yeah, so my day job is I help run an organization called Fight for the Future, which is sort of like an ACLU for the internet. So we work on civil liberties issues, surveillance, and free expression. And Queers Against Censorship is actually a relatively recent campaign that we launched specifically here in the Boston area to call upon our Massachusetts congressional delegation, folks like Senator Markey and Senator Warren, who historically have been very outspoken in favor of LGBTQIA rights, but have occasionally advanced legislation that actually would harm our community. So, for example, we've been working with a coalition of local LGBTQ organizations to oppose the Kids Online Safety Act, or KOSA, which is a bill that really sounds good on paper, is trying to address a very real issue, which is big tech companies deploying surveillance-driven algorithms that harm our kids, but that from our perspective and from the perspective of civil liberties experts would actually allow the Trump administration to erase resources for trans and queer youth who are under attack. And so we're calling on our senators to kind of speak up on this, and so I thought I'd bring some signs here to the library to make our point.
Well, we spend a lot of time criticizing the internet and the whole talk about kids with mental health problems, et cetera. But if you're queer or trans, I would think a place of community when you're young and trying to figure it all out.
It absolutely can be. There's actually a major study from the CDC, back when we had a CDC that actually functioned, with apologies to our previous guest.
No, he's not.
I know, he's on our side.
He's on the right side.
But a CDC report on social media use among teenagers that showed, for many teenagers, it's the story that we've all heard, which is that, overuse of social media is harmful, it harms mental health outcomes. But for specific groups of teenagers, including LGBTQ teenagers, you actually see better mental health outcomes for queer youth that have access. And it's not a mystery, right? For those of us, if you grew up in a rural area, if you grew up somewhere where you don't have supportive parents, playing on Discord with your friends may be the only space that you have where you can safely express yourself. And then there's resources like the Trevor Project, which are out there providing suicide prevention for LGBTQ youth. And those are the types of resources we want to protect while holding these big tech companies accountable for the very real harm that they're doing. And we believe we can do both at the same time.
Evan, how's this market for trans artists?
Oh, it's lucrative, let me tell you. I make dozens of dollars.
How tough is it? No, really, how tough is it?
What I will say is that I was playing music before I came out as trans. I've played music now for 20 plus years. I'm not as young as I look. What I will say is that I certainly have lost some work because of it. I used to play a lot of picket lines and labor marches and things like that. But I have also gained so much community and support, and there's a real need, especially among young people, for this kind of music and for music that is made by and sung by people that look and feel like them. I wouldn't trade it in for anything.
Mayor Wu's been supportive of some of your work, has she not?
For sure. I think Mayor Wu has said a fair amount of things about some of the issues that we're talking about here, including standing up for free expression for queer and trans communities. I've also criticized Mayor Wu for some of her other positions, including the way she handled the Emerson encampment and the way that I think things have gone down at Mass and Cass. So I think
there were arrests there, if people don't recall.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think like any politician, I always prefer to have someone I want to fight. I put Mayor Wu in that category.
We can't leave not without mentioning your confrontation with Nancy Mace, the congresswoman. Happened about a year ago, the day after the Trans Day of Visibility and an Internet Summit event. Here's some.
The day after Trans Day of Visibility, we have had dozens of trans people die this year because of the hate and lies that you are spreading. And if we want an internet, are we building an internet with free speech for everyone or just the privileged few? Are you going to stand up to the lives of trans people, black and brown people?
We respect freedom of speech. God loves him, I love him, but his penis isn't going to be in my bathroom. So, at any rate, but we have a responsibility.
Well, now Nancy Mace has talked about my penis on WGBH, so that's really a career highlight, I think.
Yeah, I mean...
but not on BUR. I want to be clear about that.
We got to keep...
But what was that like, and what did you make of the whole experience?
The context of this is that, again, I run this organization. I get invited to a variety of events at the intersection of human rights and technology. I'd been invited to an event, and I later found out that Nancy Mace was one of the keynote speakers. If you're not familiar with Nancy Mace, what you just heard is a pretty good representation of her politics. She has sort of branded herself like she's like to the right of Marjorie Taylor Greene in terms of where she's positioning herself in the Congress. And so I felt called to, I couldn't just sit there and let her, say these vile, hateful things to the room full of people. So I stood up and I spoke out and was, quickly removed from the room, which I anticipated, but it did get a lot of press attention and I think helped spark a conversation within the tech policy space, exactly as I said in the room. Who are we actually fighting for here? Are we just fighting to protect, everyone's access to the internet no matter what, or are we fighting to build a world where technology is a force for good, a force for liberation, rather than a force for exploitation and tyranny and greed?
Evan, the last thing I want to ask you before you tell us what you're going to play another song for us is we have said on the show on a number of occasions, we've bemoaned the fact that protest music ain't what it used to be. And when you were talking to one of our colleagues when we invited you on, I think you suggested essentially that it's a pogo-esque thing. We have seen the enemy and it is us. There's plenty of it, but we generically aren't giving it play. What is your position?
Yeah, this has been a pet peeve of mine, and I think many other musicians who are speaking to political and social issues. And I think the reality is it's not that there's no protest music anymore. It's that, frankly, we've lost so many of the types of media institutions that helped amplify that. I mean, here we are on public radio, which, as we all know, is under active attack by this administration and by so much else that's going on in the world. Like, these are the types of spaces where you maybe would have heard a Phil Oakes or a Joan Baez, and where you should be hearing, Dead Prez and modern activists and musicians who are out there speaking out now. I think the other thing I'd say is I often hear this from, to be frank, folks that are a little older than me, and the reality is that a lot of protest music that's out there right now is hip-hop, is punk rock, is maybe not kind of sit-down folk music that perhaps we think of traditionally as protest music. And so I think it's just important that we go out and find it. It's out there. There's plenty of protest music.
I want to thank you when you said folks a little older than me. The fact that you did not make eye contact with me at that moment was very admirable. I want you to know exactly. What are you playing?
So we're going to play a song called Spray Paint, which is another little kind of nostalgic look back. I've been playing music like this since I was a high schooler here in the Boston area. I was in high school when 9/11 happened, and organizing protests against the war in Iraq and Afghanistan was where I cut my teeth on politics and music. And so this is kind of looking back a little bit at that. And now I've got a high schooler in the Boston area, and gosh, we still seem to have genocide going on in the Middle East, and our tax dollars going to all kinds of things. And it feels like things, in some ways, haven't changed that much in the last 20 plus years, but here's a song about it.
Can you gently put your headset down and rejoin your bandmates?
I can do that.
Evan Greer.
And I want to tell people, Evan Greer, she's playing an album release show at Deep Cuts in Medford tomorrow night. More info and tickets at deepcuts.rocks/events or at evangreer.org. We're going to hear Spray Paint right now from Evan Greer and her band.
We are, right now, at this very moment. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Marjorie. All right.
I remember the day my math teacher said, "Go turn on the TV." My whole class watched the towers fall. We'd all just turned 16, calculating all the things to come in the years ahead. We spray painted the war on every stop sign, but it didn't stop the war. So we rode our bikes to the lake after high school and shoplifted from chain stores. We weren't lost. We were finding our own way through the show. What if we were born what if we were born at the end? We were born in flames and we will break before we bend. But what if we were born at the end? Thanks so much, y'all.
Evan Greer.
Fabulous, you all. Thank you so much.
She's playing an album release show at Deep Cuts in Medford tomorrow night. For more info and tickets at deepcut.rock/events or evangreer.org. Evan and the band, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Deep Cuts in Medford tomorrow night, deepcuts.rock/events or evangreer.org. Coming up after this quick break, just enough time for our two more things. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and 89.7 live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
This week on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, Massachusetts may have the highest literacy rate in the country, but essential reading skills are still lacking in certain Commonwealth communities. 3 experts tell us how a massive overhaul in reading education could increase literacy rates for kids. That's Under the Radar with me, Callie Crossley, Sunday night at 6 here on 89.7 GBH and the GBH app.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the DeMoore McKim School of Business at Northeastern University, where MBA and master's degree students can build vital business skills through experience. Learn more at northeastern.edu/business. And Revolutionary Valley. On April 19th, 1775 in Lexington and Concord, the first shots of the Revolution rang out. This is the heart of Revolutionary Valley. revolutionaryvalley.org. Funded in part by the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browder, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. You made it to another, well, no, actually, this is 2 more things, and we may only have time for 1.5 more things. So why don't you start it off, Marjorie?
Well, I just want to say some 450 events are planned across the country this Sunday to celebrate growth of solar power, energy efficiency. Boston's event starting at 1 o'clock at the Old South Church. People are going to walk about a mile the corner of Boston Common. They're going to be by Park and Beacon Street. It's going to be a brief multi-faith celebration of hope after that. But this is in reaction to this is Bill Kibben, by the way, that's running this whole thing. He's doing this because planet warming rose in 2025. The Trump administration has rolled back virtually all climate regulations, including a nearly finished Rhode Island wind farm at the cost of 1,000 jobs. He's taken away clean energy tax breaks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an opportunity to get out there and protest what's going on. The event will start at 1 o'clock, Old South Church, right here in Boston, proceed across Boston Common.
It's a perfect segue. I'll be as brief as I can. Budget cuts, threats to retirement funds, healthcare cutbacks, obviously sounds familiar. Well, what Trump and his GOP Congress has wrought here is being proposed by the government in France. And while the breadth of the assault on the good the government does in France is not quite as broad as what Trump did here, the response dwarfs us here. We tweet, we complain. Every month or so, there's a relentless soul like Bill McKibben who sponsors something like on Sunday. As Carol Rose from the Civil Liberties Union told us yesterday, there's another King's Rally on October 18th, after which we'll go home and just plan another one. In France, Marjorie, roughly 1 million workers went on strike this week. 1 million workers. Many hundreds of thousands more engaged in what they call block everything. What we do in this country is we block nothing. I know there are pockets of resistance, and we admire them all, that are bold and real, but it's not enough. So my point, since I'm running out of town, is be French. If we all believe that what's happening to this country has got to be resisted and stopped, the The solution is to be just like the French.
Okay, we are out of time. Coming up after the 1 o'clock news, Love Letters columnist from the Globe, Meredith Goldstein joins us. We're going to talk about dating in this age of hyper-polarization, the trad wife trend, a bunch of her columns, and her podcast about Emmy winner comedian Jeff Hiller's big breakup speech. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR and 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Join us for GBH's next virtual Beyond the Page event with best-selling author Hank Phillip B. Ryan. Bring your questions to this virtual Q&A happening on Tuesday, September 30th. Learn more and reserve your ticket today at gbh.org/events.
Support for GBH comes from you and the Cape Cod Foundation, committed to building resources to support community life on Cape Cod, including environmental conservation, arts and culture, and community development. Learn more at capecodfoundation.org. And Heights Crossing, an assisted living and memory support community offering residents experiences aimed at promoting independence, inspiring curiosity, and encouraging connection with others. More at heightscrossing.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of BPR, live from the Boston Public Library. I'm not religious enough for her, and my partner does all the talking at parties. Don't say it, Marjorie. Those are some recent love-related dilemmas from Boston Globe Love Letters columnist Meredith Goldstein. She joins to discuss all matters of the heart, including whether polarized politics make dating almost impossible.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then this weekend marks the 20th annual What the Fluff Festival in Somerville. We'll open the phone and text lines for all things marshmallow fluff, from Fluffernutter sandwiches to Rice Krispies. How do you enjoy this local pantry treat, or do you find it a little too saccharine for your palate? Fluff and you. Some listeners call this whole hour Fluff Jim. The third hour of BPR and 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The U.S. Senate has been deciding on a short-term spending bill to keep federal agencies funded through November, averting a government shutdown at the end of this month. Democratic leaders, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, oppose it. House Speaker Mike Johnson addressed that after his chamber passed the measure.
They're not being reasonable at all. A short-term CR is not a partisan exercise. We could have loaded this up with partisan provisions, but we're not doing that.
All but one Democrat in the House voted against the measure. We are working to confirm votes in the Senate. The Trump administration is asking the U.S. Supreme Court to block a judge's order allowing transgender and non-binary individuals to choose the identification marker on their passports rather than what matches their sex assigned at birth. The ACLU had sued, arguing one woman had a passport returned with a male designation and other transgender people were too scared to submit their passports out of fear their documents would be held by the State Department. The Justice Department says the government should not recognize sex designations it considers inaccurate on official documents. The State Department has released a new strategy for how the U.S. will engage in global health. We have more on this from NPR's Gabriela Emanuel.
For years, the U.S. paid billions in foreign aid dollars to non-governmental organizations to set up and maintain aid programs. With the new strategy, officials work directly with individual governments, integrating programs into their national health systems. Elisha Dunn-Giorgio heads the Global Health Council. She says the strategy lacks details.
How does it get implemented? Who are the partners? Do you have the structure to do this? Or do you all of a sudden have to kind of rebuild what you just tore down.
The Trump administration has already shuttered billions of dollars worth of global health programming. Gabriela Emanuel, NPR News.
One of the nation's largest teachers' unions is trying to pressure the Trump administration to cancel the debts of some federal student loan borrowers. NPR's Corey Turner reports.
The American Federation of Teachers is seeking an injunction to force the Department of Education to cancel the debts of eligible borrowers. The agency has been delaying cancellation for those who have been in an income-driven repayment plan for the required 20 or 25 years, as well as for borrowers who have applied for cancellation under the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Buyback Program. The AFT calls these delays unlawful, while the Education Department tells NPR they are largely the result of problems that began during the Biden administration. The clock is ticking for borrowers. In January, the government will again consider loan cancellation taxable income. Corey Turner, NPR News.
From Washington, this is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A deal has been struck to end the months-long strike of the waste management company Republic Services. The Globe reports that a joint statement was made this morning between Republic officials and the Teamsters Local 25 union. The 5-year deal is expected to restore trash and recycling services as soon as Monday, but customers could still see delays as returning drivers have to complete mandatory retraining. Some 400 Republic Services waste collection workers walked off the job on July 1st, affecting residents in more than a dozen communities and commercial businesses in Boston and surrounding cities. But we have word today that a deal has been struck. The strike is just about over. Republican lawmakers in Connecticut are concerned about the state getting financially involved with the sale of the Connecticut Sun. This comes after Governor Ned Lamont met this week with officials from the Mohegan Tribe, which is looking to sell the WNBA team. Lamont said that he's open to using state pension funds to buy a minority stake if it keeps the team local. Connecticut's House Minority Leader, Vincent Candelora, questioned whether the rationale of the state ownership.
Is this for return on investment or is this for economic development? If it's for economic development, the pension fund is not appropriate. If it's return on investment, we could have a conversation.
The dispute comes as Connecticut officials have accused the WNBA of interfering with the sale of the team. Mohegan Tribe was reportedly in negotiations with groups in Boston and in Hartford, but the league said it would not approve a move to either city. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their premium travel card, Venture X. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. Thank you very much. And streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. On Tuesday, the mayor of Boston is going to be here with Andres Nelson. They're not coming together, but he's going to be here separately. He's the conductor, music director of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. And September 30th, Maura Healey, the governor, is going to be with us here at the library. Hello again, Jim.
Hi, can I add some good news, which we almost never do?
I'm so excited.
A judge, in I think record time, has thrown out the $15 billion BS lawsuit Trump filed against the New York Times, said it's impermissible. We do not know the basis for its being tossed. That's worthy of applause. We'll find out in a minute, and we'll share it with you as soon as we do it. Speaking of more good news, we're joined now at the library by Meredith Goldstein. You're a fairly up person, no?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely counter-programming for everything.
For that?
For literally everything.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
You're
what I
from
try
Love
to be.
Letters. You know that, right?
Yes, I am from Love Letters.
In the Boston Globe, wherever you get your podcast. Meredith Goldstein, let's hear it for her. Thank you and welcome.
Yeah, so thank you very much for coming in. And, you know, when I was talking to Jim this morning, I said, we have to ask Meredith about, we talked a lot before about people checking out each other's politics and online dating, but it's got to be just revved up to, you know, the stratosphere at this particular junction.
I mean, I can't imagine it would be any more revved. I think we're at the top of it being on people's minds and making sure your values match, and perhaps it makes difficult conversations easier to have right off the bat, to say, oh, this is how this person feels about, you know, this important issue to me. So, yeah, I think we're there. I think we've long been there for a while now, of just maybe it being the first question you ask instead of perhaps the 10th in a different time.
Is anybody willing to cross the aisle? It's one thing. We have people calling on the phone saying
I don't know.
She's good looking enough.
Oh, there you go. That probably is my answer.
I don't know. I mean, I think for a lot of people, it's who they're already coupled with and how their politics change over time.
No. That I agree with.
Yeah.
If you're pre-coupled, if you're this era coupled, we have a lot of calls. How about if you're not coupled? And you're about to get in a relationship, whether it's dating or otherwise, do people cross the aisle at all, except for what Marjorie described?
No one I know personally.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they do. And I'm sure, for them, there are a lot of different ways we pick a partner. But, yeah, I mean, for some people, religion is going to be at the center of their conversation, regardless of politics that don't relate to religion, although I'm not sure there are any. But we all have our deal breakers, as they say, but I have not seen much of that.
And
before we continue, let me just give people the update very quickly on the dismissal. They can refile the complaint. Shockingly, Trump's lawyers filed it improperly. And here's what the judge said. A complaint, meaning a filing of a complaint, is not supposed to be a public forum for vituperation and invective or a megaphone for public relations.
There you go.
While they can refile,
and by the way,
good for that judge.
Kudos to the New York Times. They are standing up to a great degree. And I know they don't get federal money, so they're not worried about their licenses. But
you don't know what their business interests are. Maybe they are dependent on some government
I don't know. All I know
approval.
is that they're a family-owned company, and they're standing up, and I'm very, very proud that they are. Anyway, so the other thing I wanted to ask you about, too, is the trad wife trend, the traditional wife trend. And I asked you this in context, too, to Charlie Kirk, who, of course, was murdered horribly. But he talked about how, before he tweeted about Taylor Swift, saying that Taylor Swift should be submitting to her husband-to-be, Travis Kelce. And that's part of the trad wife thing, that get married young, have a lot of babies, and submit to your husband.
I'm sure you can guess what I'll say about all of this. The first time I heard trad wife as a phrase, my best friend who lives in St. Louis sent me some TikTok reel where they were women talking about how they were trad wives. And, we both laughed at it because she's not that, my friend. And I certainly wouldn't have the domestic skills to be that. But what we saw it as was part of a fun TikTok strange, somewhat upsetting movement, but also there were some people who had chosen this identity almost like it was cosplay. And it went from being this, almost like an acting game on social media to being obviously a political conversation. So in the same way that I do not know anyone who has crossed the aisle, as they say, I also do not know many trad wives you'll be shocked to know in my life in Boston. It just doesn't really. And what does it? What does it even mean? I did not grow up in a home where any wives were, and I think it's when you take it seriously, it's women can be what they want, and so can anyone, and it's. I can see how it's a very dangerous and upsetting concept to a lot of people.
Well, I read about that when they had a big convention. They had a big trad wife convention.
There was a trad wife convention?
Yes, the New York Times did a story about it.
Oh my God, the A-line skirts must have been incredible. Must have been incredible.
So I have one more question about things in general. Marjorie started off with, in the time of great polarization, how's that affecting relationship building, et cetera. How about in a time of unimaginable stress? I don't know anybody who is not feeling stress, regardless of what their worldview is, at epic levels. And we talk, by the way, when people ask me about this, the only reason I can handle the stress is because of these 3 hours, actually, where you can talk about them and it's sort of, you get it out of your system a little. How does that affect relationship building?
It affects everything. It affects me giving advice to people about their relationships. Sometimes I can't see beyond the lens of the world, and then you just get, and so this is why I say, take a walk, grow a plant, play a board game. We all are told, well, don't watch the news all day and all night. But what are you supposed to do in that time? So I'm into puzzles. I'm into anything I can get.
Crossword or you mean jigsaw?
Oh, like jigsaw. I'm terrible at it, and I have no patience. But anything that takes you out of the moment, I think scrolling forever is not good. And you begin to get warped.
Yeah, no, I think those distractions really, really matter. So one of the things I love about your podcast is you tell us, you have little tidbits about Meredith's life. And I remember a while ago you talked about some guy that you were sweet on in college and sat in front of you. And you always regretted that you never said anything because you were dreaming about him. And then in this more recent podcast, when I play a sound from it with the guy that just won the Emmy Award for Supporting Actor in a Comedy, Jeff Hiller, you talked about how you did rush in and confess your love for Brad back when you were like a high school girl. And in the context of, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that we should tell people how we feel if we can find a way to do it.
I mean, the real story I wanted to tell was that when we see movies, so often a character makes a big speech. Like Julia Roberts comes in and she's like, I'm just a girl and this is Notting Hill and I want you to love me. But if you do that in real life, it's like kind of weird and maybe aggressive. And I read the book written by Jeff Hiller, who did just win an Emmy for the wonderful show Somebody Somewhere. And he gives a speech to a guy he dated. He tells the story of that in his book, and I wanted him to come on the podcast and tell that story. But in that, I recognized something about myself, which is I remember being about 16 years old, truly falling for a boy who was like a year or two older than me, and saying, I'm going to do it. You know, I grew up with When Harry Met Sally. Harry shows up at the end and gives that big speech. And
Great
at 16,
speech.
I was like, I know what I must do. And I said, Brad, I am in love with you. And imagine being on the other side of this. First of all, this boy did not like me back that way.
Oh, no.
He was cleaning up his living room after having a few friends over, and he was like, okay. And then he offered me a ride home, which was
nice.
And dropped me off. So, you know, I think it doesn't always go well. So Jeff tells his story from his 20s about telling a truly awful person to date, you know, I loved you anyway, basically. And then we decide, is it good to do the big speech, even after you've already been rejected, if you're going to get rejected? And I am I'm less tied to my dignity. I don't value it that much. So I'm happy to say, I love you. But I do think you have to think about, do I love the person, or am I just creating a narrative about how special they are?
I love Jeff Hiller. Before we continue this, can we just play?
Okay.
I loved his acceptance. The whole thing was great.
Beautiful.
Again, supporting actor in a comedy series. Here's just a little bit of what he had to say.
I just want to say, thank you to HBO for putting a show about sweaty middle-aged people on the same network as the sexy teens of Euphoria. Thank you to the Duplass brothers and Carolyn Strauss and Hannah Boz and Paul Thureen, who wrote a show about connecting and love in this time when compassion is seen as a weakness. And thank you to my sweet husband and my family for never laughing at me. And most of all, thank you, Bridget Everett.
I've only seen a few. Bridget Everett is also
This
absolutely.
show, if you want to feel good, it's a really, truly good feel-good show. And Jeff, to be experiencing success in your career like this, basically at 50, is so exciting. To have your breakthrough in some ways at 50. It's a delight. Yeah.
So before we leave, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
I was just going to ask, how did his speech go in real life?
So the short version of the Jeff Hiller speech is in his early 20s. He dates a guy who is terrible to him, which so often this is what happens in our early 20s. And the guy basically not only cheats on him, but in front of him.
Yeah.
And it's a very funny story. You should listen to him tell it. I can't tell it as well. But he calls the man and says, I just want you to know, like, I loved you and you were important to me. You were my first real relationship. And this man, I won't ruin it, but he does not have the kindest answer to this.
No, he doesn't.
But what was really cool was that we recorded this episode about speeches before he was nominated for the Emmy. And then I was able to say, oh my gosh, we're talking about speeches, and I just hope he can give his own winning speech. And I emailed him a few days before the Emmys.
Oh, you did?
I did, and I said, like, I'm so excited about this episode. And he wrote back, you know what, thank you so much, Harrison Ford's going to win. Because it's Harrison Ford.
Yes.
And I was like, you are correct, sir, Harrison Ford will win, but have a good time, get some free stuff. And then that night, I wasn't even watching the Emmys, and my phone, it just started lighting up.
That's great.
He won. And I'm thinking, who's he? And then it's Jeff Hiller. And I hope Harrison Ford was nodding in approval, because it was all of those nominees were really, anybody could have gotten that and earned it.
Okay, so before we get to some of the advice you've given, speaking of podcasts, this is odd. Evan Greer's band was just here.
Yes.
The guitar player is from Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
When we were saying off the air, Meredith Goldstein's going to be here, the guy from Portland, Oregon says, Meredith Goldstein's going to be on today? Yes. And I said, how do you know Meredith Goldstein? It turns out, I hope I get this right, he says you were on a podcast of a person who was doing a podcast on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes.
And that you came to the podcast wearing sushi-themed pajamas.
Yes.
Is that correct, yes or no?
It is true. I'm a huge fan of the show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And there are two women who do a show called Buffering the Vampire Slayer.
Yes.
And they were also once married. So I'm interested in that show because they started as a married couple doing a podcast and then became a divorced couple doing a podcast.
Oh.
So for me, the two layers, right? Relationship columnist, I want to see how they get along, and also I want to see Buffy. They asked me to join their live recording in Boston, and I showed up wearing the pajamas that Buffy herself wears in the show, which is
Oh, I didn't know that.
sushi pajamas. So I thought I have to
hold
show
on.
up as Buffy.
What is it, sushi
So
pajamas?
they're flannel pajamas covered with pictures of sushi.
Oh.
And very famously, she says, like, I'm going to, basically go hunt these demons. And she says I should probably change out of my sushi pajamas. and I love that,
That
true,
is
because so
great.
often I want to take on the world and I'm wearing flannels I got at Old Navy. So I'm like, wait, I have to change my wardrobe for this. But I'm so glad somebody
From
likes
Portland,
that.
Oregon, he knew that.
This is a people
No, he
who-
knew that you were obviously had an impact.
I mean, listen, I like to think I do, but also Buffy does, and also Buffering the Vampire Slayer, just such a fun, if you want to rewatch podcast, it's a fun one.
Now, before you start, I want to say this.
Okay, go ahead.
Marjorie, we decided to put, as we always do, in a certain order, your columns. Now,
Yes.
when Marjorie starts, she's going to tell you what she picked as first, and you have to guess why she picked that particular
Okay,
column.
that's right.
as
I mean, I
her
can
first
guess
choice.
which.
Well,
No,
why
I
don't you
won't.
Okay.
Well, before we get to that one, though,
Oh,
just one
sorry.
thing I want to say about dating and reciting your true love. Jim's first love was Harriet Heinemann.
Oh, my God.
She was a shot
She was
putter
on my-
from his junior high school, and we're wondering if we think that did Harriet express her true love, or what happened, Jim?
She did in an indirect. Actually, this.
Can we get all of the crushes on this show
Now, here's
and see
the,
who
here's the
likes us
deal.
back? Yeah, okay.
I was at Hebrew school preparing for my bar mitzvah.
That's right.
Okay. Now, when you're in Hebrew bar mitzvah class, one of the things you do is you compete for the prayer book award. And the prayer book award is given to, I've never explained this as fully as I'm about to do. You win the prayer book award not for comprehension, it's in Hebrew, by the way, but you win it if you can read Hebrew faster than anybody else. Okay, you with me so far?
Okay.
Okay, now, who was the fastest Hebrew reading person in the class?
Was it you?
It was Harriet Heinemann.
Okay.
Who won the prayer book award as the fastest Hebrew reading person in the class?
Harriet?
I did.
Oh, you did.
Why
Okay.
did I win?
Because you were.
Harriet threw the contest at age 13 years old in an attempt to win my affection. And that's where the
Wow.
whole Harriet Heinemann thing comes from. So what advice would you give Harriet?
Brushed her
You're
Had
gonna,
she
you're
written
gonna
you-
throw. You're gonna throw it away for some man.
Exactly. The prayer book award. She did. And he's been brutal ever since.
I've not been brutal at all.
Yeah, you said she was a shot putter.
I didn't know. You said she was a shot putter. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being a shot putter.
No, nothing.
No,
Oh, my
no,
God.
no offense to any shot putters. Okay.
Okay, can we move on
Yeah,
to
okay, we'll move
Meredith's
on.
columns, please?
Okay, which one do you think I guessed that we should do
No,
first?
take a guess, because you are going to guess.
Oh,
Which one?
I had a letter about what's the point? Do I need to repartner after 65?
No.
No, that's a good guess. It's my partner does all the talking at parties.
Oh.
And the reason
I wonder why
we
Marjorie
chose
picked that
is
one.
because whenever we have
Her
to go
work
somewhere,
partner.
whenever we have to go somewhere,
gosh.
I've been at parties you've been at. Jim always says the same thing. Okay, I have to call you when you get here to meet me in the party because I don't want to walk into this party by myself. I'm too shy, he says, or whatever, to go to the party by myself. And then the moment we get in the party, he just takes off. And he's telling all these stories, mostly about himself, of course, and regaling the crowd. And I don't see him again for 3
reading
hours.
Hebrew so quickly in these parties.
Exactly. So it is a problem, especially if you don't know anybody else at the said party, and you wind up with the person who's the star of the
It's
party.
also hard if you have somebody who claims they're not good at parties. I claim I am good at parties, and then I hide in a corner. So that's hard too, when somebody thinks they're going to be covered socially and then they're not.
Yeah.
Okay, enough about me. Can you describe what the dilemma was that the woman wrote you about?
This letter writer says their partner's great at parties, she's not so great at parties, but then she can't get a word in edgewise anyway because the partner is so good at parties. So then she feels like she's being trounced on, socially. And I think it's hard when you have this overcompensating social partner to then let them know now is my time.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
And you also get left alone.
Yeah.
Because that person is holding court, and you are over in a corner there, not knowing
with
anybody.
like some other person who can't deal with the party.
I
Yeah.
know. That's what you have to do. You have to seek out somebody else who's kind of a loser too, and you can be two losers together at the party,
Yeah.
talking together. I'm not very good at parties at all. He claims he's terrible, and then of course
I'm surprised you're both not fantastic at
I'm
parties.
not. I'm not. I'm not a party person. I like a small group thing.
Yeah, me too.
I like 4 people, 6 people.
Yeah.
You get 50 people at a party.
Well, in my day, I want to say, since you attacked me, in my defense, I have a lot of stories to tell about myself.
He does.
It takes time.
He does.
Okay, but wait a second. You know what was weird about your response? I
Yeah.
didn't read it last night. I read it when you did it, whenever the hell it was. What I found, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you told the woman, the shy person, how she should respond to this, but I think nowhere in your response, did you say, go to the guy and tell him that maybe, assuming that was your position.
I think she did.
No, I don't. Did you or did you?
I think I focused on, because first of all, it's a good skill to have on your own, and it's also you can't control other people. So yeah, I do hope he says, hey, let me make space for you to speak, but also like, how are other people speaking? It's a good skill to have in any room. So I did want this letter writer to take some accountability for not speaking up and sometimes saying, hey, I have something to add.
Okay, I just want to tell you something. I don't mean to criticize, but making space for the other person to speak doesn't usually work, is my experience. Saying I need to have more time to talk.
Thank you.
Or
okay.
I don't know that very
Here
social.
we go again.
I don't know that.
Here we go again.
I think very social people might not even know they're doing it. So how do they tone it down? And I need to remember in any room, it's on me to say, hey, I've got something. I want to contribute.
Yeah, but so the guy in this situation, what should he have done? What should he have? I mean, first of all, some people don't want to be invited into conversation. What should he have done vis-a-vis his partner who was upset?
I think it's a lot for him to have to guess. Am I going to be putting my partner on the spot by saying, "Hey, Lois, it's your turn"? She might not be. I'm giving her. That's not her name is not Lois, but giving somebody the spotlight before they want it, and that's really truly why I think it's on us as party goers. And also, are they connected at the hip all night? Can you just go to a different part of the room and get some attention there? I like to watch what other people do socially and some of the lead-in lines they use. And I love to watch how people exit because I'm always trying to back into the bushes and not be seen.
That's right.
How do people do this without just bailing?
Yeah, we debated that a lot. There's the Irish goodbye.
Yes.
The Italian goodbye. The Jewish goodbye.
Where you never leave.
That where you never leave. You're leaving for 2 hours.
I was going to say, I have a very Irish version of a Jewish goodbye. Which is to tell everybody, I feel so bad I'm about to do an Irish goodbye. I feel so bad about it. Oh my God, are you going to be mad at me? Are you mad that I'm doing an Irish goodbye? Yeah, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah, the Irish goodbye traditionally is when you just disappear.
Yes.
You disappear out the door.
Okay, so you attempted to guess you were wrong, what Marjorie wanted to talk about. What would you think, and it wasn't the over 65, but what would you think the second story of yours Marjorie wanted to talk about? Think
this
for a
is tough.
second.
Give me a hint. You got to give me a hint.
I'll give you a hint. Good in bed, but a horrible person.
Oh, I should have guessed
Why
that
would
first.
she want to talk about that, do you think?
Well, we'll find out. But
Okay.
this was a great letter, which is somebody wants to go find a friend with benefits.
Yes.
Which, is, but what if they're not a good friend? What if you don't like them?
Mm-hmm.
Then they're sort of demoted from friend with benefits to just benefits, but this person annoys them. So they were saying, can I really stay with this casual relationship when I just wish this person would stop talking?
That's right. They were having great sex, but his family was a mess, and the discussions were a mess.
It's like,
isn't the obvious answer no? Go find somebody else.
That's exactly what she said.
Find somebody else.
End this relationship. That's what she said.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're fine with this, right?
Oh, what?
This is what her desire is, and assuming.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Do your thing. Just don't be annoyed.
Well, I think a lot of people feel that way. They want to have a relationship. They don't want to get necessarily involved, especially if they're people that have been married for a long time and their lives are complicated.
Yeah.
They have a lot of work stuff. Mm-hmm. They want the
the positives without the responsibilities.
Yes.
And if somebody's annoying you, that's not really, I don't see the benefits.
Before you go ahead, anonymous texter says, okay, fastest Hebrew reader and most improved camper.
That's
whole
right,
package.
The whole package.
It's the only award I ever won in my whole life.
Someone said they Googled Harriet Heinemann in Philadelphia and a bakery came up, Jim. Mm-hmm. Attracted to the family.
I think Nicole, you're on the case, are you not? Sort of, okay. I mean, we are trying, by the way, for those who are faithful listeners who actually are following the Harriet Heinemann saga,
yes,
which we hope you are not.
She was in the Olympics.
Nicole, our colleague, she was, you are, by the way, if I said anything like you say, I'd be in HR
You
like
say
at 2
things
o'clock.
you make up these stories about me in college that aren't true about my Hawaiian boyfriend.
Did you read the book? Excuse me. Did
No,
you read the
she
book?
didn't read the
Excuse me,
book.
am I
She
talking to
wouldn't have
her?
read the book.
Did you read the book to her roommate who's the best? What's your
No,
best-selling author?
Iris Krasno.
Iris Krasno has
No.
written a bunch
Yeah,
of books.
yeah.
She writes a book. I read, excuse me, look at me.
It's not
I
true.
was reading
Yeah.
reading a book.
He's
Can I
making
finish
this up.
sentence?
He's making this up.
Did your boyfriend, the Hawaiian boyfriend, have a Woody? Yes or no? I mean, a car.
A station
Sorry,
wagon.
a car.
What's happening to me?
Whoops. Okay.
For those listening,
All the time,
I have started
24/7.
hiding behind the desk.
Okay. Okay. Can I finish this?
Yes.
Yes, he had a Woody station
He had a
wagon.
Woody station. Yes, or no?
Yes.
He had a Woody station wagon.
He did, yes.
Does Iris Krasno, that's who wrote the book.
Yeah, she's
Excuse
making
me.
this up.
Best-selling author.
Best-selling
Did she not
author.
write that the two of you, the Hawaiian
No, she
surfer
didn't.
and
That's
you,
not what she wrote.
are sitting naked
No,
next to the
the
Woody?
naked part is not true.
If he wa-
It was back to
true.
back, doing
Naked.
No, we were
Naked.
in clothing. He was in a wet.
I'm not, by the way, I'm not criticizing
doing
you. It is what it is.
transcendental meditation because
Yeah.
I lived in California.
Of
What did you
course.
do in California? But you did rolfing and transcendental meditation. That's what we were doing. He's making this up. So
I need
okay.
to read the book clearly, and if Harriet ever comes on, I'd like to be here too. Those are the two things I'll say.
Okay.
For
Can I
all
be
of
clear
this.
about two things?
Yes.
One,
What?
she was not the love of my life. I treated
You
her
broke
fine.
her heart. You
I treated
broke her
fine.
heart.
And two, she was not a shot putter, as far as I know.
But she might run a bakery, which
She
might make
might
her
run a
one of
bakery.
the
He
loves
wanted
of my
her to
life.
be a
if she
gymnast
can,
or a
you
figure
know,
skater, and it didn't work
bring
out
some
that
baked
way.
goods.
Do you have anything
Okay.
else you're dying to say?
But we never got to the people over
We have
65.
no time. I want to ask you this question.
Yes.
You're a local kid, of late, right? You're not born here. Were you born here?
No. I was born in Jersey, raised in Maryland, and came
Fine,
here at
that's what I
25.
thought. Okay, so we're going to talk about the Fluffernutter Festival
Yes.
tomorrow in Somerville. I feel disloyal as a local now,
Yeah.
saying I do not like fluff at all. Marjorie, on the other hand, had a Fluffernutter sandwich every single day for how many years when you were a kid?
7th, 8th, and 9th grade.
7th, 8th, and
with
9th grade.
Twinkies for dessert.
So how do you feel? We're going to talk to our listeners about
I
how do
would
you feel about
say
marshmallow fluff?
Small doses.
Really?
A little goes
How
a long
small?
way. Very small.
Very small, exactly.
And I like sweet things,
You
but
do.
a little bit, a lot more peanut butter.
Yeah, I think they're not as popular as they once were because they're really just
I think
kind
they're
of.
huge, actually.
But I don't want to disparage the Fluffernutter because
Yeah.
we're going to talk about fluff and it's from Somerville and we want people to buy lots of fluff.
I'm going to gift
Okay.
you that book by Iris
Yeah, please
Krasno,
do.
and then you come back and
We'll
talk
have
about
to,
it
we'll
next
have to
time.
do the over 65 thing next time you come, Mary. We
Yes.
didn't get to go to that because you were too busy.
This is where you thank her.
I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank the two of you. You have distracted me from so many things today.
It's a beautiful thing. We really appreciate
Okay,
it. Meredith Goldstein, thank you
Meredith
very much.
Goldstein, author of the Love Letters column in the Boston Globe and the Love Letters podcast, which is so wonderful. I love your podcast. New episodes available every week wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you.
Coming up after this quick break, as Jim said, some of our listeners think this last segment is usually all fluff. Well, today it really is all fluff. Love it or hate it, we are dedicating the rest of the show to honor a local innovation, marshmallow fluff, because it's Marshmallow Fluff Day or something like that. I'm Marjorie Egan, he's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR at 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
President Trump's immigration crackdown has placed thousands of people in ICE custody. A facility in Texas has had major problems.
It was just heartbreaking story after heartbreaking story. They also told me that the food and the water were making them sick.
I'm Ari Shapiro, a rare look inside this facility and its conditions on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And the Boston Speaker Series, continuing its 2025-2026 season at Symphony Hall with 7 evenings, featuring Tipping Point author Malcolm Gladwell, Dr. Anthony Fauci, Ken Burns, and former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster. bostonspeakers.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. September 23rd at the library, the Mayor Wu, will join us for an hour. Andres Nelson's music director at the Symphony will also join us. We love Andres. On the 30th at the library, the governor will join us for, obviously, Ask the Governor. This weekend, I'm going to hold up a poster if we can get a little shot of this. Somerville will hold its 20th annual What the Fluff Festival in Union Square, a tribute to the city's history of innovation. I didn't know till today, GBH, as in right there.
There you go.
GBH will be there with a table. We are apparently a media sponsor. Jamie, is that what we are? Okay, we're a media sponsor. Somerville, I assume everybody knows, is where marshmallow fluff was invented in 1917. This guy, Archibald Query, I think you pronounce it, Query, made the confection in his kitchen, and he sold it door to door, Marjorie, until the shortages of the First World War shut him down. But the legacy of fluff lives on. Every year for the past couple of decades, Union Square has been home to What the Fluff Festival. It is this Saturday, 2 to 6, that's right, 2 to 6. Live music, restaurants offering fluff-inspired items and more. So to mark the occasion, we're opening lines to ask you about your relationship or lack of same with fluff. 877-301, love it or hate it. Did we all grow up eating Fluffernutter sandwiches on Sunbeam White bread like someone we know right there, Marjorie Egan, or did we not? I'm not anti-fluff.
It's good for my teeth.
I am sort of, I'd say semi-agnostic, but I am not a fluff fan. Give us a buzz, 877-301-8097. Is that a true story? You ever ate it every day?
It is. Morton Junior High School, I had a Fluffernutter sandwich with Skippy peanut butter on Sunbeam bread every day with Twinkies for dessert for 3 years.
Did you like that or you didn't like that?
I loved it. I thought it was great. But you know what? Twinkies used to be better then. They used to have like people that are older will remember.
Real cream?
They had like a cream filled center.
Yeah.
Now it's like
What do
a
they have
sugar.
now?
It's like a sugary
It's like plastic.
It's not nearly as good. It was a real cream filled center and it was really, really good. So
we want to know.
But it's very bad for you. Very bad for you.
We want to know what you think about fluff. A texter says, anonymous, one great thing about fluff, I didn't know this either, is that unlike jelly, it does not need to be refrigerated. I didn't know jelly needed to be refrigerated.
No.
Does fluff not need to be refrigerated?
It would survive the nuclear attack, Jim.
It would?
Yes. It's something you should have in your house just in case.
What do you think? Maybe if you grow up with it, you feel more. How many people in the audience, raise your hand, are fluff fans here? That is rather small. That's like 8 people out of a full
Well, it's
house.
very unhealthy. I think people think it's very unhealthy. It's full of, corn sugar and sugar. Remember Jared Barris? I've forgotten about this. He used to be a state senator.
I think he's headed to the Blue Cross Foundation now in California or
American Red Cross, I think it is.
Whatever it is.
Anyway, he was a
right.
city councilor or something out there in Cambridge. It was his
he was a state rep.
State rep.
Cambridge.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry,
he
it wasn't a city councilor. He was a
Yeah,
state
what
rep.
did he do?
Oh, he's a state senator.
Whatever he was. He was something. What's
in
the
any
difference?
case, what he tried to do was limit the ability of the schools to serve fluff because his 8-year-old asked him for a Fluffernutter sandwich, which he'd never heard of, and he was very upset that they were serving Fluffernutter sandwiches in the Cambridge schools, Jim. You missed that great event, I guess, when you were a Cambridge City Councilor.
I was not a councilor yet.
But then, in retaliation for this, this was a big brouhaha. You don't remember this?
No.
Jared Barrios trying to shut down the Fluffernutter sandwich?
No.
He took a lot of grief. In retaliation, State Representative Kathy Ann Reinstein proposed a bill to make the Fluffernutter the official state sandwich of Massachusetts.
What happened to that?
I think she succeeded. Isn't that the official state sandwich?
Jamie, Nicole, is it the official state? We'll check it out.
If not, it should be.
Okay, 877-301-8970. You and Fluff, are you going to the What the Fluff thing? Well, they call it Forever Fluff is the thing here. Union Square, Red Cross. That's, by the way, you know what you could see in Union Square that I didn't see a few months ago?
The donut store.
No, the Northern Lights.
Oh, the Northern Lights, that's right.
Yeah, I missed that too. Let's start with Sally in New Hampshire. We're talking about fluff and fluffernutters, whatever. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I listen to you guys every single day.
We really appreciate that. Thank you.
So it's funny because I grew up eating Fluffernutter all the time, every day for lunch.
Yeah.
I love it. My kids grew up eating it. And I'm a vegetarian. They're all vegan. But you know what? So what? I know it's bad for you, but it's so delicious.
What do you like?
Yeah,
What do you like about it, Sally? What draws you to the Fluffernutter?
Okay, yeah, like just enough of a contrast with the sweet, and then the crunchy peanuts in
right.
It's a wonderful combination. It's just, and then of course you have to have it on. I don't eat it on white bread. but whole wheat bread.
Oh.
Well, that's a little bit more healthy than the sunbeam
Marjorie
bread.
eats it on sunbeam.
Yeah, sunbeam bread was not very healthy
Sally,
either.
thank you. By the way, our colleagues found out it has been the official state sandwich.
There you go.
Since 2021. What do you think of that?
Now, some people are saying, I find this hard to believe.
What's
Maybe
that?
they're joking. Fluff and liverwurst sandwiches?
No.
I can't imagine
Exactly. You
that.
heard the response in the room.
Yeah.
No.
Jay from North Kingston says he loves Fluffernutters with Teddy's peanut butter. That's also a local peanut butter.
It is indeed.
And fun fact, a serving of fluff has less sugar than a serving of jelly. That's according to Jay in North Kingston. I do not know if that is true, but if so, I'm happy to know that.
Do you eat fluff right out of the jar like you eat peanut butter?
I don't eat it the way I used to.
Oh, you don't?
No.
What happened?
I switched to peanut butter and bananas.
Oh.
That's my favorite thing. As you know, Jim, I have it all the time.
Speaking of
Dean
eating,
from
by the way,
Dudley.
we told you yesterday on the GBH News Instagram page and on the Boston Public Radio TikTok is a brilliant video done by our colleague Lexi of our trip to the Big E. And Sunny MB07, who's watching the Big E video online, says, I think Jim gained like 60 pounds at the Big E. I'm gaining it just watching him.
Well, here is the story behind the story there at the Big E. Jim went up and sat on a bench in front of the Massachusetts Pavilion.
I did.
And sent me off to get all the food.
That is incorrect.
And Jamie came with me happily.
Jamie,
and Zoe. And Rainier, was it Rainier that came with us to get the food?
Everybody was there, went and got food. I thought it was very respectful.
Rainica, thank you.
She helped with the film,
She helped with the food, and you can see us all delivering the food to Jim as he's stuffing all this food in his mouth. No one got to do anything at the Big E except stand in line to get food for Jim.
That was beautiful. Michael from Warwick.
It sort of says it all.
It does say it all, and I'm glad it does. It's on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. Michael from Warwick says, fluff is best in hot chocolate. I forgot that. I've had fluff in hot chocolate. It is delicious. Do you want to say anything about that? No.
Well, Dean from Dudley, listen to this.
What did he say?
He says, I have Marjorie beat. My mom had 2 Fluffernutter sandwiches, 2 hard-boiled eggs, and a bowl of Campbell's chicken noodle soup waiting for me every day when I rode my bike home from elementary school.
It's a beautiful story.
What a lovely mother.
It is a beautiful story.
That's really something. 2
Let me ask you
Fluffernutters,
something
2
else.
hard-boiled eggs. What?
My attitude is, I don't mean this facetious, I mean this totally seriously. My sense is, like you said before, what's that expression, the nuclear half-life or whatever? Something lasts forever.
Yes, yeah.
If you left fluff out for like a century and you opened it up to put it on a sandwich, it would be exactly the same as it was a century. Like the original
I wouldn't be surprised.
The original jar that Mr. Query developed in his kitchen
Kept it
in
rapidly
1917
tight.
is probably just as good
It could
today,
be.
108 years later.
It could be. It's one of those nuclear waste kind of things that would last forever.
Oh, you know what we
Linda,
have?
What?
Sound of the 1960s fluff commercial. Let's hear it.
Oh, you need fluff, fluff, fluff to make a fluffernutter. Marshmallow fluff and lots of peanut butter. First you spread your bread with peanut butter and marshmallow fluff and have a fluffernutter.
Okay, there you go. That was really fine.
Oh, we've been corrected here, Jim. Somebody's saying that Jamie's saying it actually deflates inside the jar. So basically, if you leave it there for too long, it disappears.
That's a really sad
well,
story.
Well, that's creepy.
Okay, let's go to Sarah in Boston. We're talking about fluff in honor of Forever Fluff Day over there in Union Square tomorrow. Hi.
This has got to be a New England thing.
It is.
I don't know. My parents are immigrants. I was the weird kid for not knowing what it was.
Yeah.
But I see it like the spam of dessert. It's like the strangest consistency. I don't think it's meant to be edible.
Well, it is a little...
What is it meant to be then, Sarah, if it's not edible?
I'll use it to lay bricks, but I'm not going to ingest it.
Sarah, that's a good one. Thank you much for the call. We
Tony
appreciate
from
it.
Worcester says, I grew up in a traditional immigrant Italian household, never encountered fluff until I was married to an American woman. I said to her, what the... Is this stuff terrible, he says.
Well, there you have it. Let's go to... we had Sarah in Boston. Let's move on. Thank you, Sarah. 877-301-8970.
Forget marshmallows and hot chocolate, says Mary from Leicester. You put a big spoonful of fluff in instead. No comparison. It's
In what?
really
I didn't
yummy.
hear that. In what?
Hot chocolate.
I just said that.
You know what? I'm sorry.
Remember I was here?
I know. Well, I'm reading the text, so
Oh,
I can't always listen to you, Jim.
Here's what I said.
I have to
How
apologize
about fluff and
for a
hot
momentary
chocolate?
lapse.
It was a lapse.
What?
Thank you. Hello, thank you. Now, what was listen to this story in Boston.com. Guess how many people went to last year's annual What the Fluff Festival in Somerville?
Thousands.
20,000 people. Is that...
So what do? Do they give out Fluffernutter sandwiches?
How do I know?
You're not going? It's right near you.
I am staffing the GBH table from dawn till I fall asleep at the end of the day. We are going to have a table there, and we can have a table there. So go find the GBH table. I assume we will have swag and that, of course, whatever. Bryn in Cambridge, you are next on BPR. We're talking about fluff. Hi.
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 Okay.
That's
My
right.
husband loves fluff.
Yeah.
My husband loves the fluff, and when I found out that he wanted to be cremated, I said, I'm going to rinse out this fluff container, and there's your urn.
That is... I'm hoping that's a true story, is it?
It's a true story.
Is he in it, or he's going to be in it?
Oh, well, hopefully not for a long time.
But is he aware that that's where he's going to spend his post-life days?
And if you knew him, you know that works for me.
That is a beautiful story. That is really a beautiful story.
Well, some people are very, very attached.
Where do you want to be buried? Like in a teddy jar, Bryn, or what's your deal? What's your hope?
No, we have Mount Auburn Cemetery. We have it all set up for us.
Well, it sounds like it's great, and I hope he lives a long life, but at the end there, it's a great thing you got going. Bryn, thank you very much for the call. Do you have any interest in having your ashes in a fluff container rather than an urn?
I'm more attached to peanut butter now than I am to fluff, I must admit, particularly Teddy's peanut butter. I love Teddy's peanut butter.
We discussed that a few weeks ago.
There's a fluffy seagull coffee drink, and people that were lined up out the door in Yarmouth all summer to buy it, says one of our texters.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I can see where you might like Fluffernutter in your
When we
your
were
coffee.
younger, did they not have flavored fluff, or am I imagining
They did.
that?
They have like strawberry.
That was a disaster,
They're
right?
awful,
Okay.
awful, yeah.
Okay, let's go to Diana. Did we do you? I don't know if we did or not, but hello, Diana in a car.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi.
Are you burying any of your relatives in a fluff jar?
No, I'm not. I'm a person who hasn't eaten a lot of fluff in adulthood.
Yeah. What are we doing? We at a drive-through?
Yeah,
What are we doing,
we can hear the
Diana?
radio in the background.
Oh, it's the radio.
Yes,
Turn down the radio, Diana, if you don't mind, please.
Okay, I turned off the radio.
Excellent.
Well, my story is
Please.
I'm a dual national, and I grew up in London.
Okay.
And I went to summer camp in New Hampshire.
Yep.
Because my parents thought that would be like a way for me to learn about this country. So I went to Camp Marlin in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
And my camp counselor was shocked and horrified that I didn't know what fluff was.
I understand that.
And I did, as a 10-year-old, I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's not to love as a 10-year-old?
Sure.
So she sent me a jar of fluff for Christmas.
This year? This year?
No. I'm now 68.
Oh, I see. You mean at the time.
It was in 1967.
Okay. Now, have you lost... Is the point of this story that you're no longer a fluff fan at this stage of your life? Was that the point? Not really.
That's part of the point, but the other point is just the love of a camp counselor.
Oh.
And how
That is
the
a
camp
nice
counselor
story.
can continue to counsel you and
Yeah.
influence you and love you throughout the school year.
That's actually a lovely story, an international story. I
Even
love
if
it.
you're 10,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Diana.
Diana.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Very moving.
Now, James in Salem uses fluff for his whoopie pie filling. I bet that's good. Do
You know where the
like
whoopie pies are great? Portland, Maine. You ever
Are
had?
they
Are they
great?
found?
No.
Is that where they're from? Or
I don't
something?
know.
By the way, somebody, Jamie, Nicole, somebody says that marshmallow fluff still exists. So
yeah,
there you have
it does.
that.
Somebody just sent me a picture of
That's
it.
very exciting. That was probably one of your
A
coworkers.
lot of local ice cream shops have a Fluffernutter ice cream, which
Never
is
heard of it.
incredible. Well, I can see. You ever have marshmallow topping on a sundae?
chocolate, love graham crackers. Anything with a marshmallow in it makes me unhappy.
Really?
Even though I must say, since you asked, Marjorie, a truly burnt to a crisp marshmallow in preparation to go into a s'more when it's dripping, you know that dripping thing?
Yeah.
Where it's like burning hot?
Yeah.
That I could do.
Okay.
What do you think of that?
I think that's because they do taste pretty good when they're burnt on the outside.
They do, thank you.
Soft on the inside. Okay.
Do you want to talk to Gwyneth and Kittery? Sure.
Listen to this. This is from Bill in
Not
Bridgewater.
yet, Gwyneth.
Pretty sad state of affairs. We can get 20,000 people at a fluff festival, but only 12 at a Stand Up for Democracy rally.
That's a good one. That's a really good.
Okay. Gwyneth from Kittery, Maine. What do you think, Gwyneth?
What's up, Gwyneth?
I gotta say that fluff, I grew up with it. It was a lot of fun.
Sure.
And great. It's been a part of a science fiction book series.
Yes.
The main character has to have his Fluffernutter.
Really?
And I learned a lot from the people on Facebook, and they said, do not ship fluff by mail. It'll explode.
Wow.
Oh.
That's frightening.
Because it's all full of air.
Understood.
And second of all, there's I couldn't eat this. There's a fluff screamer, which is made with beef, cheese, onions, burger buns, and a third of a cup of marshmallow fluff. It's like a big burger of fluff.
That doesn't sound too good, does it?
Putin serves that in the prison camps in Russia, by the way, Gwyneth.
Yeah. That was apparently developed in Pennsylvania, Jim.
Well, what would you expect? Gwyneth, thank you very much for that was excellent history there. Now, I would like to read, because I think people probably really care about this, a little bit of the history of fluff. Are you interested in that?
Absolutely.
I don't think so. The origins of modern-day marshmallow cream appear as early as 19th century Paris, Marjorie, where pharmacists whip marshmallow juice. What is marshmallow juice?
I don't know.
With sugar and egg whites as a soothing throat remedy. In Somerville, the very same Archibald Query developed his own version in 1917, as I said, selling it door to door until World War I, when sugar shortages stopped him from doing whatever the hell he was doing. What do you think of that?
Well, that's very exciting, Jim. I'm glad you shared that with me.
By the way, an
And
anonymous
also this,
texter. Oh, go ahead. You go ahead.
Nicole says, this is our staff member, Nicole, that I
Sorry,
used to be
coworker,
afraid of marshmallows because of Ghostbusters. Remember the huge marshmallow dress in the sailor suit in Ghostbusters?
No.
But now she said she's gotten over her fear, and she loves it.
Another beautiful story. Now, an anonymous texter says, you should have asked Meredith, as in Goldstein, about this. Fluff in the bedroom, a game changer.
Really?
A lot of people say that.
Does Harriet say that?
She never did.
Not talking about this.
She was underage at that time, too.
Another texter says, I love fluff so much that one of my wife's biggest fears is to come home and find myself and our child covered in fluff and stuck to the wall.
That's another problem. I mean, it's not quite as bad as cotton candy.
It's
it does
very
stick
sticky.
to you or whatever.
Yeah, you got to be careful. You got to be careful. It's really good for your teeth. So imagine all that fluff
Probably
and sitting
brings right the crap
sitting
out
in
of
your
there.
teeth all afternoon. No wonder it had so many cavities. No fluoride in the water and Fluffernutter
Didn't know
sandwiches.
fluoride in Fall River?
No, we were behind.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we were way behind. Remember we
So
looked
did you
it
have a
up.
ton of cavities when you were a kid?
A ton of cavities.
Really, that's
No,
sad.
a ton of cavities. Well, I don't know if the Fluffernutters and the Twinkies, the
Probably
fluoride was
contributed,
a combination. Yeah, I didn't have it till I was gone. Bridget in Melrose, what do you think, Bridget?
Hello, Bridget.
Hi, I'm here to bring some revisionist theory.
Oh,
Okay,
please.
we're ready.
I wish you would.
Some revisionist history.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, there was a product that was made in Melrose until started about 1913.
Okay.
Called Curtis's Snowflake Marshmallow Cream.
Yeah.
Marshmallow cream.
It won marshmallow cream.
Yeah.
It won an award at the 1916 Panama Pacific Exhibition.
Really?
Yep.
So
I don't think she's done. I think she has a lot more
But is
history
it different than
report.
fluff, the marshmallow cream?
It's an alternative.
They made two products. They made Snowflake Marshmallow Cream, and they made something called Smack, which I think was more like fluff.
Wow.
Okay.
So it was a brother and sister who ran the company. They had been in the soda fountain business, and my theory is that they had figured out a way to take the marshmallow cream from soda fountains and make it shelf-stable. At the time, people used it a lot for baking, and there was no shelf-stable marshmallow cream.
So let me ask you the obvious question. How do you know this,
Yeah.
Bridget? How do you know this?
Because I used to be the reporter for the Melrose Free Press.
Oh.
Back in the early 2000s.
Fabulous.
And this was a local story, so I wrote about it, and I've actually written about it a couple times since then.
I want you to know, Bridget, that our colleagues put on our screen, which sadly is not up for everybody else, an ad, apparently from like 100 years ago, Miss Curtis's Snowflake Marshmallow Cream, the original and best, signed by Emma E. Curtis
from
Melrose, Massachusetts.
Pretty good.
Hey, Bridget, that was a great story. Right. Thanks for sharing that. We really appreciate it.
Okay, listen to this. I work for one of the large package delivery companies and occasionally pick up packages and samples going out from Durkee Mower, that's the company in Lynn where the fluff is made. Some days the smell is enough to make you go out and buy a jar. I did exactly that one day after not having had a fluff sandwich in years. I could not have been happier.
Wow.
So there you go.
Another incredibly beautiful story.
And some people do the whole thing. They do peanut butter jelly and fluff. You
never get spoke. When that woman, a person, said before that unlike jelly, fluff can sit out. Jelly can sit out.
I think you have to put a lot of jellies in the refrigerator once you open them.
You do?
Yeah.
We have tons of jelly, and none of it's in the refrigerator.
Well, look for the mold next time you open it up.
There's no mold.
That's why Jim. Yeah, did you hear that?
Zoe said that's why Jim has 10 doctors. I actually do not have 10 doctors. I do have 8 doctors. Thank you. I do. I counted this morning. I had my annual physical, and we were counting down how many doctors I had. And I have 8. I have 8. I'm well taken care of. Thank you.
The Fluffy Seagull, which apparently is a big hit down in Yarmouth in the summertime, it's a Fluffy Seagull latte, and it contains espresso, milk, peanut butter syrup, and fluff.
Wow.
What do you think?
Now, we're not done yet, unfortunately, for most of you. But the story that was the most moving of all the stories that we heard, I think, was the woman who's burying her husband in an empty fluff jar. Would you not say?
He's not going to fit in there.
Well, you don't know.
You have to have several.
I hear he's small. I've heard he's rather small.
He's a jockey.
They're getting a large jar. It's not a shot putter. Kevin in Rhode Island, let's take you and see if you can really raise the tenor of this conversation. Welcome.
Hey, how you guys doing?
We're excellent. Thank
long
you.
Time, second or third time.
We really appreciate it. Thank you.
But never on quite such a serious topic.
It is important. Yep.
So I'm from Ohio originally, so a couple of things to note. I'm not even sure if fluff exists down there. I think we always called it marshmallow cream.
Yeah.
And I think the brand was Jet Puff or something like that.
I don't know.
Brand that makes like marshmallows.
Huh.
One. And two, I just always assumed since I've come up here that they were just the same thing, fluff and marshmallow cream. And three is that my mom took it to the next level for like snacks for lunchtime. She would take graham crackers, and not just like the honey graham crackers, but the ones with cinnamon and sugar on them.
Ooh, I love
and
those.
She would put marshmallow cream, peanut butter, and that was like a great snack in and of itself. But then she started putting semi-sweet chocolate chips in the mix.
Oh my goodness!
Ooh.
And obviously it's really good, but needless to say, it's not one of those things that I'm frequently given to my kids. I don't think I ever have.
That's another beautiful story. Thanks for sharing that.
I think it's fair to say attitudes have changed about giving your children Fluffernutter sandwiches every day.
I don't think so.
I think it's.
Do you know
not
who the
as big as
Grand
it used to
Marshal
be.
of the Fluffernutter Parade tomorrow is?
Jared Bone.
Jared Bone. Now,
is that where I am tomorrow?
Even though you're one of the healthiest people I know, my guess is, since you're sort of local, that as a child, let me think this through, you loved a Fluffernutter.
I liked a Fluffernutter,
Oh, that
but
was
I always
it?
preferred peanut butter and jelly. My sister preferred fluff.
Oh, she did?
Fluffernutters.
It was a divided household.
Yeah, it was a divided household. But we talked about it on the show the other day. I had probably my first spoonful since childhood. I loved it.
Why'd you have you had somebody on from there?
Yeah, we had the
Fluff?
Main Streets
Who?
in Union Square Main Streets in
Are
Somerville.
they the ones sponsoring this thing?
The festival,
Anything we left out that people should know about tomorrow? Do you know who's sponsoring this baby right here? Check that out. That would be GBH.
GBH.
Yeah.
So you didn't get the email where I told you that I couldn't be the Grand Marshal, so you have to be the Grand Marshal? You didn't
I
get
live
that?
about 3 blocks away, so I'll be there. Thank you very much.
A texter says if Jim would eat a peanut butter and fluff sandwich for lunch, it would be wonderful. He'd be unable to speak for at least 2 hours.
You who wrote that? You who wrote that?
Marjorie in Brookline.
Jamie.
Oh, did Jamie write that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, that's the other thing. It's really sticky.
It is really
Kinda
sticky.
dry. I do prefer
Thank
jelly,
you.
and I think you do have to put it in the refrigerator. By
You
the way.
do?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Jelly, definitely.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to put fluff in.
Wait, jelly or Fluffernutter?
No, jelly.
Jelly,
Oh, okay.
absolutely.
All right, well, that was
Don't
an
have a
excellent
peanut butter and jelly
conversation.
at Jim's house. Who knows what jelly's been?
You know, we're never getting that half hour back. Let me just say that right now. We've made a decision. We regret it, and there's nothing we can do about it.
All right.
Okay, what are you doing? It's live, by the way, here at the library. You know that,
We're
right? It's
live
right here.
at the
Thank
library.
you.
Yep.
What are you doing exactly?
We're going to be talking about the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel and what the consequences of that are for free speech. I know you've been talking about it as well. We'll talk about the projections of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein on Windsor Castle as an artistic form of protest.
Yes, that
during
was
the
something.
state dinner. And then we'll move on to Jerry splitting from Ben and Jerry because of the constrictions around activism there. And then we'll talk about the new cat mayor in Somerville. Because
I heard
how
about
can you
that.
not
I know.
talk about the new cat mayor in
Wasn't
Somerville?
that something? Yeah.
That's all this, and we do, despite what's happening in Washington, we have a new poet laureate, so we'll talk about that this week. So
City or the state?
No, federal.
We do?
A new national poet laureate.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So
picked by who?
By the acting librarian of Congress, I believe.
Okay.
We'll get that straight before we start the show.
Okay,
so
well,
it's moving
that's
forward.
Say, you don't have to say anything. Thank you, Jared Bowen. He'll be on with his colleagues in exactly 3 minutes.
Okay.
I wouldn't miss it if I
A
were
texter
you.
says in Grady Lake in New Hampshire, straddling the border into Maine, a gentleman delivers Fluffernutter sandwiches by boat to anybody who requests them. You ever heard of that?
Really?
Grady Lake,
Wow.
up in New Hampshire. Okay,
Excellent.
Thanks for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Thanks to everybody who came down to the Boston Public Library. Much appreciate you. Keep up with us 24/7 way of our podcast. Check out our TikTok page with our performance up there at the Big E, where Jim just eats and eats and eats. We have great video of that. Tune in Monday for Amherst College, Elon Stavins, BU Journalism is Brian McGrory, who also used to be the editor of the Boston Globe. Axios business editor Dan Premack, who knows everything about the economy. The Reverends Irene Monroe and Emma G. Price. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer, John LaClaw Parker, our executive producer, Jane Bologna. Special thanks to our BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Bill Francis, and Juan Jose Cadena. Thanks to, as well, our hosts at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel, Jared's Culture Show. The Week in Review edition starts immediately after us here on 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston
Can I ask a
Public
question
Library.
before we go?
Yes.
Do you think the principled thing to do is to return the salary that's attributable to the last half hour that we just did?
You didn't like Fluffernutter talk?
I liked it fine.
It was a trip down
Fine.
memory lane for me.
It
Brought
was.
back those wonderful days at
It was
Morton Junior High School
Okay.
with Fluffernutters and
Fine.
Twinkies.
I'm
All
Jim Browdy.
I'll see you later, Jim. Good
Bye.
luck. Good luck.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty believes progress happens when people feel secure and exists to help people embrace today and pursue tomorrow. Learn more at libertymutual.com. Salt, fat, acid, heat, action. GBH has the sizzling shows with all the seasonings. Catch your favorite GBH cooking shows starting tomorrow morning at 10:30 and continuing all afternoon on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. Coming up today, is this what democracy sounds like? ABC has pulled Jimmy Kimmel off the air indefinitely for making comments related to the Charlie Kirk murder.
We had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
The sudden move to pull Kimmel followed threats from the chairman of the FCC.
I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead.
Speaking of free speech, Ben & Jerry's, famous for scooping social activism into every pint, has split. Jerry has resigned, saying his independence was silenced by parent company Unilever. Ben says the activism will carry on.
We're both standing up for the values of Ben & Jerry's. I think that
I can be most helpful from the inside, and Jerry's gonna try to be helpful from the outside.
Then, after a day of royal pageantry and a sleepover at Windsor Castle, President Trump was feeling like a king.
It's a singular privilege to be the first American president welcomed here. This is truly one of the highest honors of my life.
Outside, protesters branded him a predator.
4 people were arrested for projecting a video onto the walls of Windsor Castle, laying out a timeline tying Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein.
1997. Trump and Epstein are seen together at 2 Victoria's Secret parties and are photographed together at Mar-a-Lago.
From there, we remember movie star and visionary Robert Redford, the on-screen charmer who gleamed in The Great Gatsby.
How do you do, old sport? I'm Gatsby.
And simmered as an investigative reporter in All the President's Men.
Hello.
Yes?
This is Bob Woodward of the Washington Post. I can't seem to get an explanation on why a check for $25,000 made out to Mr. Dahlberg that he apparently sent to the committee to re-elect the president would end up in the bank account of a Watergate burglar.
And in Somerville, a feisty feline face-off is over.
The race for cat mayor of the Somerville Bike Path has taken the internet by storm.
Minerva, the black cat, clawed out an upset win with a one-word platform: crime.
Like Minerva the cat, what is her stake on crime? Is she for crime? Is she against it?
We take on that and more right now on our Arts and Culture Week in Review.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
In 2018, Donald Trump, who was at that time president of the United States, was so upset about my jokes that I made about him, he directed his staffers at the White House to call Disney to tell them to rein me in. Usually when he wants somebody to stop talking about him, he pays them $130,000.
Welcome to The Culture Show, live from the Boston Public Library. I'm Jared Bowen.
I'm Callie Crossley.
And I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're going over the week's top arts and culture headlines, starting with an extraordinary move by ABC. The network has pulled Jimmy Kimmel Live off the air indefinitely, following Kimmel's comments related to the murder of Charlie Kirk. The decision comes amid intense backlash from media conglomerates, conservatives, and the FCC. Here's a portion of Kimmel's monologue from Monday night that resulted in the show's suspension.
We had some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
So as we're learning now, this was a lot of hand-wringing that was happening on the part of ABC. There were a number of things that were piling up. There were comments that have been made historically by the president in regard to Jimmy Kimmel. There were conversations that were happening by the FCC chair. And then we're learning that there was the publication of email addresses of ABC employees so that they were getting threats and things of that nature. And so what we have found is that Jimmy Kimmel, as people were filed in line to go into the studio that afternoon for that night's taping, the show was pulled off the air, and this is exactly what the president has wanted. And this becomes very complex and layered because this is a story about business acquiescing to the government, and this is about the government exerting its pressure not directly on Jimmy Kimmel, but through the process of mergers, acquisitions, and basically swaying popular culture.
Well, I think it's important to point out that a merger deal is in the works with Nexstar, and that wants to merge with Tegna. And Nexstar did the comments of Jimmy Kimmel. So that's in the background. If people will remember, not too long ago, this was the same scenario for CBS, where there was a merger deal in the background. And so, the eventual plan or agreement they came up with at the end included some agreements that normally I don't think CBS would have given into. But of course, what we're talking about here is that the reason we mention the mergers is because Brendan Carr, who is the chair of the FCC, has the power to decide on these mergers. And he's come out and said very forthrightly, I don't like what Jimmy Kimmel was saying. I think he should be off the air. And in fact, I think other stations should join in and take folks like him and their comments off the air, which to the ears of many Americans is right at free speech. So here we are.
Here we are. I want to talk a little bit about Brendan Carr too. Maybe we should. I think we have a little bit of sound from Brendan Carr.
Yeah, here he is on Fox News earlier this week discussing the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel.
We're going back to that era when local TV stations judging the public interest get to decide what the American people think. And again, we're constraining the power through those actions of Disney, of Comcast. I think the American public are going to be much better off. But yeah, I don't think this is the last shoe to drop. This is a massive shift that's taking place in the media ecosystem. I think the consequences are going to continue to flow. Look, we're going to continue to hold these broadcasters accountable to the public interest. And if broadcasters don't like that, simple solution, they can turn their license into the FCC. There's other things that we can do with it.
So I've said a number of times, I feel like in recent weeks on this show, the idea of I think it's important especially in this time where emotions are up, where there's a lot of feeling involved in this stuff, to as best you can. I mean, I try to do this. Take a deep breath, take a step back, and one of the things I keep counseling myself to do is to try to separate what has happened from the way it has happened, because you may sort of feel like. And I think there's a case to be made. You may feel like you weren't comfortable with what Jimmy Kimmel said. You think he ought to face some kind of consequences for what he said. Even if you fall there, you have a right to fall there. But ask yourself, how did we come to get to him facing consequences? And in this case, particularly with the FCC, one of the things I find a little bit troubling in this is you just heard him talking about local stations. I think we need to get back to a place where local stations can judge the public interest. Now, you could hear that in isolation and say to yourself, I think that's a pretty good idea. Local stations, they understand their public. But in this case, and like it is in a lot of cases, Nexstar Media Group, which owns a whole bunch of these local stations, made a decision for all of those stations. So they own stations all over the country, from Los Angeles to Odessa, Texas, Wheeling, West Virginia to New York City, Hattiesburg, Mississippi to Providence to Springfield right here in Massachusetts. Now, to me, what he says is implying that each individual local station is saying, I don't know that Kimmel or whatever it is in the interest of our people. But that's not what happened here. The way this was done is one company, which you could argue maybe is not as big as Disney or ABC, but is a pretty big company.
And about to get bigger.
Are making a decision for the entire country, for their entire customer base, saying, sort of couching it as if local stations individually are making that decision, and that's not what's happening.
Well, let's clarify a couple things here. Nexstar, and we're talking about them getting bigger, because right now they own 39% of the stations in this country. This is what they control. This is regulated by FCC and government law at this point. They want to change that. They want to own more so they can have larger control. And of course, if they're acquiescing to what the president is saying and what the FCC chair is saying, then maybe, like Paramount before this, they can get their deal to move on. They're also understanding what happened at ABC when they had that deal with, they paid the president millions of dollars based on the comments of George Stephanopoulos, who was reporting out what juries had found about the president's behavior as it related to Jean Carroll and others. So they understand that the only way to do business in this country is to kowtow. And by the way, if we're to understand what the president, where he now stands on this, let's listen to him from yesterday when he was on Air Force One and asked about other late-night hosts he may want pulled off the air.
Late-night host is on network television. There is a licensing. I'll give you an example. I read someplace that the networks were 97% against me. I got 97% negative, and yet I won it easily. I won all 7 swing states, popular, I won everything. And if they're 97% against, they give me only bad publicity or press. I mean, they're getting a license. I would think maybe their license should be taken away. It will be up to Brendan Carr.
So does he mean that people's licenses should be taken away because they're commenting negatively about the president? This is where we are this week.
Sounds like is what he
Until
said.
this week, people were able to listen to somebody like Jimmy Kimmel, and you could decide whether you wanted to keep listening to him or you wanted to move to another station or just ignore him entirely, because that is how this country has worked in the manner of free speech. But now we have an FCC commissioner saying that they want to rein that in. We have the president saying that he wants to pull licenses based on negative words said against him.
I mean, I think there's a couple of things that also need to be underscored, and that is actually what Jimmy Kimmel said.
Yeah.
Now, Jimmy Kimmel can say a lot of things, and he can get to the edge of uncomfortable and cross over. But what seems to me not to have been raised up is that the very first thing he said when Charlie Kirk was murdered was, "I am sending love to his family. This should not be happening in this country." So what is going on where they're demanding he apologize to the family? He's been he said it the moment it happened. This can't happen. I should be able to say what I say and criticize the president, but I don't want. Who wants this? Nobody wants this.
And we should clarify what you're talking about there too. Is Sinclair Broadcasting, which owns a whole other raft of stations in this country. They're the ones who are saying that the only way that they'll allow Kimmel back on their stations, if he is to come back, and Disney is suggesting that there might be a path forward for that, is if there's this apology by Kimmel and if there's a donation to the Kirk Foundation. So you have these entities which are controlling the majority of stations in this country, dictating, again, free speech.
I mean, it's horrific, and I want people to understand what this means for them. If you can start taking out people at this level, what do you think that means for the rest of us here? I mean, that at any given day, then what you say is, deregulated, is erased, is you're threatened with. Well, we've seen that. Some people have said what they thought about it. I'm not talking about people who have said really ugly, disrespectful, violent kinds of comments, but I'm talking about people in the range of their jobs of commentary have responded to this man's death and been fired for it. Yeah. What are we talking about here? Yeah. We've had discussions here when people on the MAGA side have said some things I found very distasteful and uncomfortable for me, and yet at the end, if people say, well, shouldn't so-and-so be fired? Well, that was the job.
Well, the hypocrisy reigns supreme here. The FCC chairman, who has, again, just said that he wants to control these licenses based on speech, he was the one who wrote the chapter for Project 2025, which wanted to indulge free speech by reining in big tech. And now we find that he is in the majority, he is flipping that narrative.
This is very dangerous.
He's also said, another thing he said this week, we're going, again on this local station thing, we're going back to the era where local TV stations, judging the public interest, get to decide what the American people think. Yeah, that's a weird thing to say, and maybe he misspoke or whatever, but I don't think that's how we have traditionally worked here. Do you know who gets to decide how the American people think? Each individual American person. That is who should decide how the American people think. And I just, if you are not in favor of that, I don't know what you're trying to do. I really don't. I don't know what the end game is.
Yeah, and we should mention the one coda to all of this is about an adjacent issue, which is the $15 billion lawsuit against the New York Times reporters and Penguin House for reporting they did. Right before we came on the show, we saw that a judge has denied that suit going forward. It seems to be a technicality because the president does have 28 days to refile. But it's yet another example of trying to exert pressure on media for its language, its free speech, its reporting. Well, moving on to another iteration of censorship, the Washington Post has reported that a new mandate from the Trump administration has ordered the national parks to remove the scourged back, a Civil War-era photograph of an enslaved man's horribly scarred body. This comes amid the administration's contention that quote-unquote corrosive ideology is plaguing our public institutions, parks, and historic sites. So this is something we have also talked a lot about on this show, is the ways in which the administration is going into deciding what content, especially that content that reflects our nation's very problematic history, can be placed on view. I will say that the Department of Interior has reported out that they did not require that this photograph be removed from sites, but the Washington Post has reported otherwise. If you're watching here at the library or streaming on our GBH News YouTube channel, we're posting a picture of this photograph, which was used very deliberately by abolitionists during the Civil War for people to understand an actual physical representation of slavery in this country. And here we are 200 years later, we're still divisive.
Well, allegedly, from the Park Service spokesperson says, some of this material, such as that, disproportionately emphasizes negative aspects of U.S. history or historical figures without acknowledging broader context or national progress. And that can, according to their statement, unintentionally distort understanding rather than enrich it. So first of all, I've seen this picture a lot. I follow this history quite carefully. I've never seen it ever displayed or in a book or anywhere without proper context. But let me give some more while we're here with
Do it, Callie, do it.
Okay. So those scars on his back come from keloiding. That's what happens to darker skins often, and it happens after you have a skin injury to the back that is not immediately intervened, right, to have some treatment to it. And if people know any history about the enslaved, people were whipped quite a bit with a multi-tailed cat o' nine tails or cowhide. It was about 39 whips generally 2 or 3 times a week. So this man would have been whipped quite a bit. The other enslaved people on the plantation were made to watch and not treat. Just watch. If you want to see a dramatic interpretation of just what this looked like, go to Glory, Denzel Washington's famous scene, and it will tell you all you need to know about how this came to be. So I'm offering a lot of context so you can understand the pain of this. But again, this is our history.
Yep.
This is not to be ignored. It's to say, hey, we hopefully left that behind.
Well, I don't quite understand. I don't quite understand where the impulse to not show this comes from. If anything, I sort of feel like, I studied history when I was in college. I've done a lot of interviews with historians, people who have written historical works. And one thing I hear over and over again, which I think is a really important one for folks to remember, is to say to yourself, they are not us. Right? They are not us. The people of the past. They're not you. Even if you share some legacy or you share race or background or religion with them, they are not you. And I think what troubles me here is that this sense that I get that some people feel somehow, even if we look at things in the past, like it's somehow an attack on us now in some way. And I think if you just stop and say they were not us, then you will find it is okay and important to tell the stories of what happened. We need to do that. We're in trouble if we stop doing that.
Well, we hope to be an aspirational society. We hope to be an evolving society. The only way we can do that, of course, is to understand ourselves, our collective selves. Yes, not our individual selves. And this is exactly what the administration is trying to stop, as if it's not part of our identity, as if we have to wash it away. And of course, we need to understand what's happening in race relations in this country today and understand the whole history of it. For people who didn't know a lot of the history, how much did they learn? Did we learn over the last 5 years since the murder of George Floyd, when people began having many conversations out in the open that they hadn't had before? And again, this is trying to be erased in places like Harper's Ferry, where this was a historic site about a slave revolt in this country, where they don't want this picture to be displayed, or the President's House, a site in Philadelphia where George Washington stayed with enslaved people.
I don't know what to say about this except that I'm fearful for the larger consequences of this. And to point out, this is very sad. During President Trump's first administration, he went through the National Museum in D.C., toured the very detailed and contextual slavery section of the museum and other parts of it as well.
The African American History and Culture Museum.
In Washington, D.C., and came out and his first words were, I have to say this is fantastic. It's important that we know this. What in the world?
I think another thing, an important thing to point out here, because the news is so fast and furious all the time. This is all fallout from executive order from way back when, right? And the nuts and bolts of how this has happened and why this is happening now is after that executive order that was all about we're going to re-examine all of our history stuff. Everybody who worked at these sites, like Harper's Ferry, were basically instructed, hey, be on the lookout. Take a look at your signage. If anything's troubling you, let us know. And some 30 signs were flagged at Harper's Ferry by people who were working there. And they said, hey, I think this might be wrong. Hey, I think this might be problematic. So I think we're going to be seeing more of this as this, we'll continue to see the fallout from this. So, I think a lot of times people have described some of these executive orders that have happened as somewhat symbolic, or it doesn't really have the power, or blah, blah, blah. No. But in this case, this is a direct line. That has happened. Now this email has gone out. Now people are giving feedback, and now signs are being taken away.
And not to mention books everywhere as well.
Well, we move to England now, where the administration couldn't stop an extraordinarily large photography display timed to President Trump's state visit at Windsor Castle. Protesters lit up the night, projecting a 9-minute video montage laying out a timeline of allegations tying the president to Jeffrey Epstein. The projections on the castle's exterior walls didn't last long, though. Police moved in and arrested the demonstrators. Again, if you're streaming on our GBH News YouTube channel, you'll see exactly what the demonstrators, who described themselves as journalists in action, it could also be described as a protest art exhibition. You'll see the space, the all-encompassing space it took up at Windsor Castle. But as we say, they were arrested very, very quickly, and the group behind this, it's called Led by Donkeys, a political campaign group. They said this was Orwellian and ridiculous. Their arrests were, they've done this a number of times before, never were arrested before.
I think our picture cuts it off, but there's also the letter that has been described as lewd, a birthday letter that President Trump said he did not write, but others say he did, including the Wall Street Journal. So reporters to Epstein on the occasion of his birthday, which is included in a book of greetings by a number of people. I've actually stayed at Windsor Castle.
Wait, whoa.
Excuse me? Yes.
Wait, really?
Yes. And I was at a conference. And so it was really interesting to be inside and watch all the tourists go away. You're inside.
Oh my gosh. I've only ever been put up at a Marriott. Where did I go wrong?
Well, here's the thing that my friends find interesting. The conference was about forgiveness. Well, we'll move on from that because you know me. Anyway, all I can say is it's the landscape on which this is projected on. Of course, we can see how huge it is. It's huge. So I can only imagine how big that projection was.
I got to be honest. Anytime I see these kinds of projected images, I mean, aside from the political message and all of that, I find it fascinating that we can pull this off. It always looks so amazing when you see these enormous images that are projected on the sides of buildings. I think it's sort of breathtaking.
It's really a big building. I think, by the way, where the Queen and everybody stays on the other side. I
was going to ask if you ran into her in the middle of the night using the loo.
No, but the food is really good. But I digress.
Really?
Yes. Anyway, so I think this is, it definitely made an impact because on the side that we were at is close to the chapel and where tourists go. So a lot of people would have seen it. So they knew exactly where to project it, even though they would have been on the other side, ostensibly.
Well, the other thing about these projections is it's very arresting because, of course, you're not expecting it, especially if you're familiar with the landscape. And then suddenly you turn a corner and, my goodness, you have this complete arresting photograph
and it's at night and it's illuminated. It's just, it's very impactful.
What was the best food you had at Windsor Castle?
I took all this because everybody
Beans
always
on
talks
toast.
about everybody talks about how bad, but they grow all the great vegetables right there at the castle.
No, I didn't know that because I've never stayed there.
Oh, sorry. Well, they're pulling.
She's like, when you stay at Windsor and you walk in the garden in the morning where you have your tea, that's where they make the vegetables.
Well done, just slipping that in,
well,
Kelly.
I thought I'd just make it. I wanted to make it more personal for you.
Context is everything.
Yeah.
Well, back here in the U.S., more claims of censorship as Jerry Greenfield, the Jerry of Ben & Jerry's fame, has called it quits after nearly half a century with the ice cream company he co-founded. He says he can no longer, in good conscience, stay on. He accuses parent company Unilever, a British company, of melting away the brand's independence, especially its freedom to address social and political issues, despite contractual promises made when he and Ben sold the company in 2000. So those promises were that they would have an independent board that would govern Ben & Jerry's ice cream as that product was swept into the entire Unilever universe and all their products. This would also allow them to not only keep an artistic control over the ice cream, but it would also allow them to say what they wanted to say in terms of social activism. And they have been very outspoken about, what has now been deemed genocide in Gaza over the years. Well, that all seems to have collapsed. Jerry had enough, walked away. Ben didn't, though, and here's what he has had to say about his company's mission of social justice during his protest outside of Unilever's UK office a few weeks ago.
Jerry and I will continue to protest what the Magnum Ice Cream Company has been doing, which is silencing Ben & Jerry's in terms of its core beliefs, its social mission. When the company now tries to speak out against injustice, when we try to speak out for racial justice, when we try to speak out for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and when we try to speak out against the slaughter that's now going on in Gaza, we are silenced. That kind of destroys, it kind of rips the heart out of Ben & Jerry's.
It's fascinating to me that, this independent board, well, the whole agreement when they sold it is very interesting, because I think a lot of the companies that would have a social justice component would have enjoyed having this kind of freedom, but they didn't have it. So I think it's interesting that they have managed so far to not run into the brick wall, but now here we are. And so they're going to have to make some decisions, because Unilever is spinning off Ben & Jerry's to yet another company called Magnum Ice Cream Company.
Yes, a demerger. So we have media mergers, and in this case, a demerger.
So does that independent board, I can't figure out, go with them?
I can't figure any of this out. But you know what my takeaway from this is? I mean, think about the idea that, there's any number of people that you might talk to who be like, well, corporations are evil, or like, if you get so big, there's always greed. And you think about like companies like Google, which started with that "Don't be evil" motto. And the idea here, you look at this and you say to yourself, it seems to me, in good faith, like Ben & Jerry wanted to grow their business, be successful, which is, I think, something we want people to be able to do here in America. And they wanted to do it in a way that they could still kind of be the good guys, fight the fight that they wanted to fight. And they're being stopped from doing that, is what it seems. They went to so much trouble to put this merger together in a way that they could still do the right thing in their estimation, and yet here they are. They feel like they've been sort of under attack, that the parent company has clawed back some of the provisions they felt that they very carefully built for themselves. That, to me, is the most disappointing point here.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're somebody who wants to do the right thing and wants to be rich and successful, what's your path?
And I'd love to know what it was on Unilever, because, as we've said, they've been pretty outspoken over the years. So what happened?
Well, I think it was probably the first time spinning off into this new entity, and probably the new entity, the
Magnum Ice Cream Company.
They don't want to be dealing with headaches for having people out there espousing views that they know could possibly be a liability to the product. And for people wondering, well, why did they sell in the first place? They are trying to buy it back, but Unilever/Magnum doesn't seem inclined to sell it back to them, because it is pretty profitable.
Yeah, and they're saying, like, just you guys clearly don't like the way we do business. We don't like the way we're being hamstrung. Let's just go our separate way.
Give it back, though.
Sure.
Yeah.
Jerry isn't the only prominent figure citing censorship this week. Artist Nicholas Galanin has withdrawn from a symposium at the Smithsonian, saying the decisions to both make the event private and not available for streaming amount to artists being silenced. So this is all relating to the Smithsonian Art Museum. And we do have talked about this on the show too, because when the president earlier this year, when he first indicated that he wanted to control the content of the Smithsonian, he specifically referenced a sculpture show that was looking at race in America, of which Nicholas Galanin does have a part. Again, if you're watching on our GBH News YouTube channel, you'll see his work. This is a piece, not that I'm talking about, it's in the show. This is a piece that he's done featuring Indian Land, the letters. This is a play on Hollywood Land. The Hollywood sign, it was originally Hollywood Land because it was real estate, but it was actually real estate for whites only in California. So this was his take on it. We'll switch to his sculpture that is now in the Smithsonian, which is called the Imaginary Indian Totem Pole. And this is a totem that is beneath Victorian wallpaper, so obviously conveying imagery there.
It's a beautiful installation.
It's a gorgeous installation.
Incredible.
But as we say, this symposium was to bring these artists together. He said, I'm not going to be part of it if you're shutting down who can be admitted to this, and I'm also not going to be a part of it if it's not going to be released into the world. There is another part to this. Other people say that there was artists themselves who wanted it closed because they don't want to be subject to attacks, and it was also artists who said that they didn't want their talk to be recorded.
Yeah, so that's where it gets a little tricky there about who's saying what. The Smithsonian is the entity saying, hey, there are a lot of people who said they didn't want to be recorded. What he was saying, usually in those situations, if you're in the symposium, you can work out a situation where the people who don't be recorded, they're on the edge over here, you respect that, you go on. But what Nicholas wanted to have happen here is a record of not only the conversation, but also the artwork and what other artists were saying, not just him. And that's part of his whole artistry. You know, so for him that's a huge silencing, and he knows that for himself and for the people who follow him, and for that matter, the other artists who are going to be a part of it. So I think I understand if it's true that the other people said they didn't want to be filmed because this threat level is out of hand now. Well, but I don't know.
And let's give a little more context from Nicholas Glannon himself about where he comes to in all this before we get to you, Edgar, because I spoke with him in June. He actually has a piece here and an installation here at Mass Art Museum, but a piece for the Boston Public Art Triennial. We had him on the show. Go back to our podcast to listen to the full interview. But he talked about, because I asked him specifically about what it meant to him to be targeted by the president for his work.
Maybe it's a badge of honor, I suppose. For many, I think we've had such challenge in our communities for so long that this is not a surprise by any means. The fact that it's still ongoing and happening is proof that there's a lot of work that our communities and our society should strive for to move forward in ways that allow for our storytellers and our voices, our indigenous voices, to be supported and upheld. Exclusion is something that we've had to contend with for a very long time.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I applaud him for doing what he thinks is right in this situation. And, you know, I mean, really, that's all you can ask from your artist. And you know, he's got his reasons. Like you said, it's a little unclear if, you know, whether the other artists were the ones who were uncomfortable or if that's cover. Whatever the case, he's made a decision that he thinks is right for him. He is being true to himself and to his art. And so I say, increasingly, good on you. Another base hit, another win, another small win for us. And I think people, you know, I hope more people just continue to do this, do what they think is right.
Well, coming up, we remember Robert Redford, the star, the storyteller, the visionary. That's coming up on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's art and culture programming.
President Trump's immigration crackdown has placed thousands of people in ICE custody. A facility in Texas has had major problems.
It was just heartbreaking story after heartbreaking story. They also told me that the food and the water were making them sick.
I'm Ari Shapiro, a rare look inside this facility and its conditions on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And PNC Bank, who believes when you pay attention to the details, amazing things can happen. Like when you check the pockets of a jacket you haven't worn since last fall and find $20. PNC Bank, brilliantly boring since 1865. And American Repertory Theater with Passengers, a blend of cirque, music, dance, and superhuman skill. The New York Times writes, extraordinary acrobatics provide gasps of delight. amrep.org. And Babson College, where students can learn to lead with impact and become a driving force for change. Babson's graduate virtual open house is on October 8th. Registration at babson.edu/gradopenhouse.
GBH Daily is a newsletter that keeps you informed, connected, and ready to go every weekday morning. You can subscribe today and get it in your inbox at gbh.org/daily.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Herwick III. If you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review, which includes remembering Robert Redford. As an actor, he brought charm, depth, and an acute ability to reveal the humanity inside larger-than-life figures. Unnatural on screen, he was restless off it, determined that he could expand well beyond the role of matinee idol. Redford directed acclaimed dramas like the Oscar-winning ordinary people and used his platform to champion causes from environmental protection to free speech. His most enduring legacy may be the Sundance Institute and Film Festival, which he founded to give independent filmmakers a voice outside the Hollywood mainstream. I was saying this the other day, that it is so incomprehensible to me that Robert Redford could be dead, because he was just somebody who was so magnetic, so I guess luminous is the best word to describe him, that yes, even though we knew he was 89 years old, it didn't seem possible that somebody who had done so much, who seemed so good and so well-intentioned, could be gone, to say of nothing of all that he helped us with throughout his life in terms of the roles that we got to trot along with him. From Sundance to Ordinary People to what was the spy movie with Sneakers?
Oh my God, I love that movie.
Yeah, I mean, it was just incredible, and I'm still trying to grasp that he is gone.
Well, I'm trying to grasp it because I really didn't think of him as 89 or know that he was 89.
Yeah.
I think he'd stopped aging somewhere for me a long time ago, and he was just there. And then it's poignant to know that he's not going to be there for the handoff. This was the last year that the Sundance Film Festival was going to be at his Sundance. It's moving to Boulder next year, so that was going to be an important moment for him. Here's the person, when you talk about a triple threat, generally you're talking about somebody who can sing and dance and act, and he was a good director. I think he was. I love The River Runs Through It. And some of the other, I know he got the Oscar for
Ordinary People,
but I loved The River Runs Through It. I mean, he could act.
And Quiz Show. He directed Quiz Show, too,
which was
also
excellent.
A fantastic movie.
You're right. It apparently didn't do well at the box office. But anyway, and then here he is, a great actor in The President's Men, and may I say, The Way We Were. Come on, The Way We Were. I mean, if you can stand up and be next to Barbara Streisand, and by the way, she had nothing but good things to say about him, which says he really was a great and upstanding guy, because she would tell you if he wasn't. And then to have actually changed the film industry. I mean, that's what he did by setting up Sundance. And all right, don't hate the player, hate the game. I have been at a Sundance.
Did you go right from Windsor Castle to Park City for the Sundance
Not together,
Festival,
not in the same year, but I have been at Sundance for an independent, not the film festival, for independent filmmakers for a conference. It was quite lovely, very lovely.
I'm trying to play Kelly Poker right now, and I have nothing to raise her. Although I have been on the river. You know what? I have tubed down the Blackfoot River, which a river runs through it.
There you go.
There you go.
So there you have it.
There you have it.
Before we go to you, Edgar, here's Robert Redford discussing the mission of the Sundance Film Festival. Here he is with Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! Back in 2015.
In 1980, the industry began to be more centralized, and they were following the youth market because that's where the money was, which I understand. But it looked like it was going to be at the expense of some of those other films that were more about the humanistic side of cinema, stories about America, American way of life, complex stories. And so, in my mind, I thought that was very valuable. I thought that's a wonderful use of film.
God, even the voice.
I mean, everything, right? Do you hear what he said? Complex stories about America, right? You think about him as, to a certain extent, for, the 20th, he's like an avatar of America, right? And when you think about it, and you think about kind of like, you kind of get why, right? He's got the ruggedness, he's got the California good looks, he's got the blonde hair, he's got command, he's got ease, all of that stuff you sort of get, right? But there's a quote from him that caught my attention, which I was like, man, under all of that, is this really what the avatar of your Americanness is? And this is to Time magazine back in 1976. Now, not only was he in All the President's Men, right, but he's largely responsible for that movie coming to the screen. He was very interested in Woodward and Bernstein at the time. He had actually tried to get in contact with them while they were in the middle of reporting all of their stuff, but they were like, we cannot be seen talking to somebody in Hollywood. Like, they're going to have our hides. So he said, just kind of offhanded, he was talking about why they captivated him. He said, people who take wild shots and miss interest me. And he was talking about when they had sort of bottomed out on their story, but then they kept going. And I thought about that as a part of the American character, that idea of like, we can do it. I can do it. This is maybe a little bit beyond my means, but I'm going to take a shot at it, right? There's something in the version of the America that I think he's presenting us that there's an underpinning of that. And then there's another quote where he talks about being a kid, and he said, that he realized he had a sort of, what did he, I forget exactly how he said it, something about his eye, a harsh eye. He said, and I developed a kind of dark view of life and a dark view of my country. So that's also underpinning it. So you have this idea that he's very interested in people who are kind of punching above their weight, but he also has a sort of skeptic's look at things. And what do you get from that? You get those complex stories of American history.
And look at what he did with all the platforms. You can do nothing with that. It would have been okay for him just to build it and sit there, but he used that for causes he believed in, like the environment. By doing films and by supporting films, small films that came to the Sundance Film Festival. By the way, I've never been to the festival, so
okay.
But I mean, that's very important. He literally created some people's careers.
Oh wait, look at
some people.
It was Tarantino, Darren Aronofsky, Ava DuVernay, Ryan Coogler, David O. Russell. The list goes on and on.
Richard
Get Out,
Linklater,
For Weddings and a Funeral,
Mm-hmm.
Precious, The Blair Witch Project. They all came out of this. But in his time in the West wasn't just a dalliance. He moved there in the 1960s. He joined the Sewer Commission as a way to deal with environmental issues from the ground up. This is something he always implored. And going back to your point, Callie, about Barbra Streisand, I've read her memoir, as I know you have. I've read and interviewed Jane Fonda, and seeing what Meryl Streep said about him, all of these co-stars had nothing but rave things to say about him, not just in this moment where people are inclined to say only the best things, but even in their memoirs. Nobody had anything bad to say about him except for the fact, and there's no exception. In addition to, he always brought out the best in them. They collaborated, they worked together, they teased, they wrestled in order to get the best product. You have actors at the top of their game all working together, as we also saw when he did those 2 team-ups with his longtime friend Paul Newman as well.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a legacy. He's got one.
And he began studying painting.
Yes, that's right.
He was on was it a baseball scholarship or something like? He was on a baseball scholarship. He was studying painting for a while. Then he went to Europe and he studied painting. I mean,
and he came back and he was doing set design in New York.
Yeah,
and
what could the man not do?
It's
really,
just
good.
Fair.
Also, I
this
think
is where Kelly tells us she has one of his paintings in her collection.
I also want to point out, in a time, again, divisive times, it seemed like universal acclaim for him, up to and including the president, who was like, he was a great actor. He was the hottest thing for a while. It's kind of notable.
It is. Well, coming up in a cataclysmic event, a black feline named Minerva clawed her way to victory as Somerville's mayor of the bike path. That and more is next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
Russia is hosting an international song contest called Intervision, an alternative to the better-known Eurovision. The U.S. has entered the contest.
It's incredibly useful for Russia to have the U.S. or a U.S. participant in this song contest. It's showing, hey, look, the U.S. is willing to make a cultural connection.
That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu. And the Peabody Essex Museum, presenting Salem's only collection of authentic objects from the 1692 Salem witch trials. Now on view. For tickets, you can visit pem.org. And YW Boston, presenting Lead Boston, equipping professionals with knowledge and networks to support inclusive leadership in organizations and communities. 2026 applications open at ywboston.org/leadboston.
Get trusted local news wherever you are. gbhnews.org. GBH News on YouTube. And always on your radio at 89.7. GBH News, what matters to you.
I'm Jared Bowen. If you're tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Herwick III. We're going over the latest headlines, which includes a recent election where the claws and paws really came out. What started as a community art project in Somerville turned into a full-blown election with dozens of pets vying for the title of bike path mayor. In the end, the political animal who rose to the top was Minerva, a black feline whose one-word platform, crime, won over voters. If you're streaming on
So
our
ambiguous.
GBH News YouTube channel, you'll see her poster. That's a pretty menacing sign, too, that Minerva has. Yeah, so this started because it was one cat who was presiding over the bike path in Somerville. Its owner, or person, claimed that this was the mayor of Somerville, and the Somerville people, are they Somervillians? I don't know.
Somervillans.
Somervillans, nice. They said,
Somervillans.
We're a very democratic society. You will
That's
not
right.
just dictate who the leader of the bike path is, and so they had an election.
Yeah, I love this. By the way, Minerva was endorsed by the former mayor, who did not win the human election.
No. I think the former mayor endorsed the incumbent.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought she
And
endorsed.
like the incumbent mayor, she also did not do so well in the election, unfortunately for her.
Anyway, I love anything that starts an organic kind of movement in this way. And as everybody pointed out, it became this just fun art installation. So Minerva's poster with everybody else's poster. It's really funny. People got very creative with the banners and the signs and the campaigning and all of that. Got a lot of national attention. What's not to like about it? This is so Somerville, by the way.
It is, and I got to be honest. So, I've been kind of like following this with one eye, and when this first started happening, part of me was like, it was just like the layers of irony and the tongue so deep in the cheek. I was like, Somerville has totally like jumped the shark here. They're being so Somerville, and it is part of Somerville's charm, right? But I was like, come on, you guys. But this has won me over time because it's like you said. I think it truly is like an organic thing that happened, and everybody making campaign posters and stuff. We need stuff like this in our lives.
Absolutely.
Well, I love the fact that there also an attorney general candidate emerged, and that was the cat who sat above the bike path, just watching everything from the perch of the windowsill.
Also very Somerville, the fact that not all of the candidates for cat mayor were cats. That is also just incredibly Somerville.
Yeah, I think there was a turtle, and I don't want to know what the coyotes think about this. We might find out. Well, we move now from Minerva the cat, who campaigned in poetry, to the nation's new poet laureate. The Library of Congress has chosen Arthur Z., a son of Chinese immigrants and a longtime figure in American letters. He's known as a writer whose work bridges Western and Chinese traditions. I have to say, this is very heartening. In this moment, we spent the first half hour of the show talking about the erasure of speech and literature and art in this country, and yet we are in a moment where the acting Librarian of Congress has pushed this individual forward, who is a Pulitzer Prize finalist, National Book Award winner, to carry poetry forward with a new term as Poet Laureate.
Now, if you want to be cynical, you could say it's because he doesn't focus on identity. He's what they call an observational poet. Beautiful stuff. Here's an opening line to one of his poems. What is it like to catch up to light? I mean, that's just beautiful.
Yeah.
So I love this part of his story about his being at MIT as a freshman, sitting there in calculus, which clearly if you got into MIT, you're supposed to be sitting in the class of calculus and doing well. Got bored and flipped to the back of his notebook and started writing.
Yeah.
And then here's the big one, because you had to go home and tell his parents, I'm going to become a poet.
Yeah.
And they weren't happy.
Yeah, and his dad, who was also MIT trained, was like, are you though? But he got the last laugh. I will say he has a quote where he's talking about poetry. I think a lot of times I find, people find poetry to be kind of impenetrable, or they're like, well, what even makes poetry nowadays, et cetera, et cetera. And he has a great description, which I just think is just really good. He says, the best poems communicate through sound and rhythm and musicality. And as you read and reread, the poem emerges. So if you're struggling to get your head around what makes poetry, what is, what isn't, that's as good of a definition as I've seen in a long time. So good on him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and he's somebody who really wants to spend, as a longtime teacher, wants to spend a lot of time, not only with kids, but with adults, having them understand, especially with his work in translation, how there are so many different interpretations of poetry, and really inviting people to create their own poems, create their own adaptations, their own translations as their way into this, and making sure that it is accessible. Well, this is where we would have a lightning sound. There we go. Thank you, Edgar. I was about to do the same. This is time for our lightning round. These are the headlines that caught our attention this week. Callie, what's yours?
Venus and Serena have launched their own podcast. It's called Stockton, and they named it after the street they lived on when they grew up in Compton, California. It premiered this week, and they began the first podcast taping and its video at the Arthur Ashe Stadium at the U.S. Open because they are so enamored of Arthur Ashe as one of the early black players who was a champion, his legacy. And in that arena is where Serena got 6 of her 23 Grand Slam singles, and Venus won 2 of her 7 major awards. So they're supposed to talk about stuff they haven't talked about before and give us info on stuff that's upcoming. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Sounds fabulous. Edgar?
Well, Callie, you give me Venus and Serena, and I raise you Bill and Ted.
Okay.
Of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. They, once of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That's Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, famously Bill and Ted. Some years back now, Keanu Reeves apparently, like he would, was kind of hanging out in a hotel room or something. He was thinking to himself, I'd really like to work with Alex Winter again. But after Bill and Ted, what mountain would we possibly have left to climb? So he hatches this idea, which I just think is brilliant, pitches it, eventually somebody goes for it, and they premiered this week, speaking of premieres, on Broadway in a production of Waiting for Godot. So you have Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, they of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, now playing the 2 leads in a production of Waiting for Godot. I am definitely going to get down to New York to see this because this is perfect.
And they are 2 extraordinary actors.
Yes,
too,
they are.
So
Yeah.
I am eager to see this myself, especially that play.
Yeah.
For people who are uninitiated, maybe they'll be a little surprised, but yeah,
Yes,
it's really
it is.
interesting. Well, mine is
Yes.
all about Downton Abbey.
Oh, go on.
I thought that would make you happy,
Yes,
Callie.
yes.
As is, we've been
Have you
talking
stayed
about.
in that? Have you stayed in that castle too?
No, I haven't, but I
Okay.
did trap Julian Fellows in the GBH green room. Go ahead.
Of course. I think I've had the Hiker Castle gin. That's the closest I come.
Yeah.
But we know that with Downton Abbey, the grand finale, this is to be the last film. At least that's what's suggested until this week when Julian Fellows, the man who has written every single episode, each of the 3 films, was asked about, is this really the end? And he said, never say never. So he's opened the door to prequels, to sequels, to spin-off characters, and how this whole realm can be explored. And if you're watching The Gilded Age, or a fan of The Gilded Age, which is airing on HBO, and this is written by Julian Fellows, and it's essentially the American version of what we're seeing happening over in England, a lot of people are waiting for a young Cora to appear in New York, because this is what her character did.
Right.
Her character in Downton Abbey.
Flintstones moment.
That's right.
Yes, exactly. So I think that may be the offing because they will definitely have another season of The Gilded Age as well.
Yeah, Downton Abbey is really becoming like a Sh*Are Farewell tour. It's just
I love
like
it.
the last time. Sure it is.
Well, I love that he said never say never. Well, before we go, we have a very fun announcement for everyone. We are launching a new culture show movie club called Wednesday Watch Party. Every month, Callie, Edgar, and I will select a film and give you a couple of weeks for you to watch. That way you'll have time to stream it, dust off the DVD, or catch it on the big screen if it's playing there. And then we'll come together on air for a full conversation asking the big questions. Did it hold up? Does it hit differently today than when it was first released? What do we see in it now that we might have missed before? How does Eddie Murphy laugh like that? we want your voice in the mix. Call in or join us here at the BPL. Our first watch party, write this down, is Wednesday, October 1st, and the movie is the 1988 comedy Coming to America. So it's on a number of streaming platforms, including Tubi, Amazon, Canopy, Apple TV, YouTube, and more. Of course, you can raid your cabinet and try to pull out the old copy. We're very, very excited about this. To remind people, Wednesday is the new day that we're also here at the Boston Public Library, so
Indeed.
we want to come down and have this conversation. Kelly, I do believe from our meeting, the seed was planted for you.
Yes, I love it. To be loved, to be loved.
Yes.
That's a song from Coming to America.
Should I tell people what it was like to be in the production meeting with you both before we came over here for the show, this was me with Callie and Edgar just spouting all of these lines.
Yeah.
I can never remember lines except for the one bad one from Bridesmaids, which I won't repeat.
You know him better as Joe the policeman from the What's Going Down episode of That's My Mama.
That's true. Edgar knows some lines.
I have seen this movie an embarrassing number of times.
Yes, me too.
Seriously. So I'm very much looking forward. I haven't seen it in a little while, so I'm really looking forward to watching it again with a somewhat critical eye. It's going to be great to see a young Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall again.
Good.
So and John Amos. Oh.
Vanessa and
yes. And Eric LaSalle before before
that's right.
ER.
I don't think I've seen it since I was a kid, so I am very excited to go back. Although I can't run down to Blockbuster and pull it off the shelf and watch it that way. We'll have to find a new way.
But you still have your name tag.
You still have your Blockbuster name tag, though.
My goodness,
just let your soul glow, Jared. Let your soul glow.
This is the span of life experiences we have. Callie staying at Windsor Castle. Jared working at Blockbuster Video.
Edgar sitting at home watching Coming to America again and again and again.
Well, that is all for this edition of The Culture Show. Tune in Monday when we'll get the delicious inside story of how Boston's La Padrona made it onto the New York Times Best Restaurant list. Plus, Don M. Simmons is here to talk about Speakeasy Stage's production of Primary Trust. Callie, what's coming up on Under the Radar this week?
We've got a piece about literacy rates. 1 in 5 Americans are functionally illiterate. And it's really, so we're looking at that and what can be done and talking about some of the methodologies that are under debate. And the second half is about CineFest Latino Boston Film Festival, the annual.
Nice.
With some great films in it. And the opening film, was done by 2 Massachusetts friends.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's set in Guatemala. It's called Comparsa. It's quite good. Beautiful. Yes.
All right.
What's coming up? Oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
What's coming up on the Curiosity Desk?
Well, new stuff always dropping on our YouTube channel. So GBH News YouTube, check the Curiosity Desk section of there. And as always, if you've got something you want us to look into, send me an email at curiositydesk@wgbh.org.
And once again, October 1st, here at the library, we will have our first watch party for Coming to America. Thanks today to the Culture Show intern, Avery Morin, engineer Bill Piacitelli, the BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, Pat Lally, and Olivia Corshio. Also thanks to the Lennox Hotel, the Newsfeed Cafe. Thank you to everyone who came down here to be with us today. We love seeing you. Thank you so much. I'm Jared Bowen. Have an art-filled weekend.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.